These were the experiences of one Naruto Uzumaki. It was once again the day he dreaded most out of the year, his birthday. The mob had started chasing him earlier than usual this year, making the poor boy run for much longer than he was used to. That, and they had manned the walls and gates well, giving him no chance to escape like he did last year. Luckily, it had been raining all day, making the few Inazukanin that usually joined in the hunt irritated that they couldn't find his scent. Using every trick in his arsenal, the boy had barely dodged every attempt the mob had made to catch him. He knew what would happen if they did. He had seen the large cauldron of tar and crate of feathers in one corner of the village during his mad marathon of survival. But he was tiring and knew it was only a matter of time till one of the Jounin in the mob sobered up and was able to find him. Running down some back alleys, over some fences, and through some of the more run-down portions of the village, Naruto made his way to one of the side gates that wasn't normally frequented. Distracting the guard was simple. All he had to do was make a shadow clone and have him get the guard to chase him. Once the guard was distracted, Naruto continued his mad dash out past training grounds and deep into the forest. After running for a good solid 2 hours, he finally came to his secret haven, a small run-down shed deep in the forest. Making his way inside, he stripped himself of his wet clothes and collapsed on a makeshift cot inside, made of a few planks of wood and old rough wool blankets. Naruto wanted nothing more than to pass out right then and forget everything, but years of being an insomniac due to fear of being beaten or raped in the middle of the night, fear of someone once again breaking into his apartment to torture him, fear of the villagers finally going that extra step and killing him kept him awake. He was fairly sure that no one would find him in the shed, but that didn't change the situation. He couldn't sleep. So the boy lay there, utterly exhausted and alone, and let his mind wander. It was almost time for the academy to start up again. He had failed last year, but was sure he could pass this time. Once he did, he would be one step closer to his dream, to become the strongest ninja the village had ever seen and become Hokage. Just so, when he did, he could turn and look at everyone that ever hurt them, that ever was disgusted by him, and thought that he was nothing more than a monster and see the looks on their faces. Shivering from the cold, the boy wrapped himself tighter in the old blankets. The cold reminded him of an odd dream he had the night before. One of him as a full-fledged ninja on a team in a strange snow-covered country fighting to save a princess. This wasn't the first of such dreams. The odd dreams had started about a month after failing the academy a few months back. Dreams that seemed real yet weren't. Dreams that seemed like that was how things should be, and others that were so alien he didn't know what to think about them. Dreams of places and things he didn't understand. Practically every night, he had had one or more of these odd dreams. Dreams of him doing things differently, acting differently, being treated differently, growing up in a different village, in a different time with parents, without even dreams of him as a girl or as a different person altogether. The dreams were never long, just long enough to have a glimmer of understanding as to what was happening in whatever location and situation the dream put him in. Naruto wasn't sure if these dreams were occurring because he only slept about an hour a night, if that, or if they were because he was finally going crazy due to all that he went through on a daily basis. He didn't know, and frankly, he didn't care. It happened about 3 weeks after the dreams had started. He had been attempting to train in his use of the clone jutsu so that he could pass next year, but frustration of failing time and time again was wearing him down. So, in his frustration, he impulsively decided to try a technique that he had seen a different version of him use in a dream the night before. In anger, he quickly made the hand signs that the other him used, focused his chakra, and shouted the name of the technique. Shadow, clone jutsu. Chakra left his system, molded in front of him, began to take shape of that of another Naruto, and finally fell into itself and dissolved. Naruto was stunned. He thought the technique was just a figment of his imagination, something his subconscious had formed in his dreams, because clones were his worst jutsu. Yet in the dream, it was his best. He never thought it could be real. But here he tried it for the first time and got results. Sure, he failed, but he knew that he could eventually make the technique work. He then thought of the other dreams he had had the last few weeks and if any of the techniques in them could be real as well. It took him time and a lot of guesswork, but Naruto succeeded in learning the jutsu. Ever since then, he kept a journal of everything he deemed important from the few dreams he got each night. Justice to try, strategies to use, fighting styles to learn, and more. Much more. As time progressed, Naruto quickly saw patterns and similarities in the dreams he was having. Things that, though may have been slightly different each time, were the same at the core. Deciding to test if some of the things he saw was true, one night Naruto meditated for hours, trying as hard as he could to enter his subconscious. Once he finally did, all his fears were confirmed. Remembering how we first met, the QB suddenly spoke, bemused. "Shut up. I don't want to talk to you today." Naruto inwardly responded icily. "Ooh, so cold. And here I thought you'd enjoy a little company. After all, it's your birthday." The QB responded, amused. "As if I want to talk to you, of all people. It's because of you that my birthday is hell for me." Naruto shot back angrily. True, but I could just as easily give you the power to make this day hell for all that torment you. All you have to do is let me out of this cage." The QB tempted. "Yeah, you give me the power to do just as you said. But in the process, I'd lose my sanity and mind. I don't feel snapping today, so I only have 3 words for you. Leave me alone." Naruto responded angrily. "Oh, don't be like that, Naruto-kun. After how helpful I've been to you telling you about your parents. Not to mention how much I slowed down my flow of chakra into you. I don't think I deserve the cold shoulder." The QB responded in a sickeningly sweet tone. "You only told me about my parents to try to get me to fly into a rage so you could take control." Naruto responded bitterly. He almost had. Luckily, he had been with Akura at the time, who had been able to calm the boy down. "And you restricted your flow of chakra because you said you hated how your poison chakra was hindering my ability to retain long-term memory, making me stupid, and thus a weak container, and that I promised to remodel my mindscape for you. So I owe you nothing. Now leave me alone and let me sleep." Naruto inwardly yelled. The QB let off a short, melodic yet evil laugh before responding, "Fine, kid. Sweet dreams." The QB said before she laughed once more, fading from his mind as she crept back into her cage. Finally, Naruto thought exhaustedly before returning to his musing. It amazed him how he could change so much in just a couple of months. Between actually being able to learn, seeing what he saw in his dreams, and finding out about his parents, he had drastically changed. He was still kicking himself for wearing that horrid jumpsuit for as long as he did. It was no surprise that the mob was able to find him so easily the last few years. That had changed, though, Naruto thought as he glanced at the wet clothes on the floor. Now his regular garb included a long-sleeved dark green shirt, dark tan cargo pants, and black ninja sandals. And in one of his cargo pockets was, of course, his trusty goggles. He may have had idiotic reasons for getting them in the first place, but they came in handy. Naruto changed his clothes for the simple reason that the dang jumpsuit stood out way too much. To be a ninja was to be unseen, and since Naruto actually gained some mental capacity, he had tried his hardest to do just that. Since the wardrobe change, he had been able to blend in easier, avoiding more beatings and the like. His dreams had also changed him. Seeing so many different perspectives he could take in life had altered his personality. He was still hyperactive and childish at times, but now he also knew there was a time to be reserved. He could still smile and laugh, still have fun and love others, but he also knew pain and sorrow, the feelings of hate and betrayal. Suffice it to say, Naruto had matured a lot in the last few months. Then there was the situation with his parents. He still was unsure exactly how he felt about being the son of the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The man had been his idol for quite some time. He once had been what he wanted to be one day. Now there was this slow, creeping hate for him. He didn't want to hate his own father, someone who only wanted him to be seen as a hero for having the QB sealed within him. But when the village completely disregarded his father's wishes and turned his life into a hell that he desperately wanted to escape, it was hard not to. It was a battle he was slowly losing every day within himself. And he wasn't even sure he wanted to win. On the other hand, Naruto really wished he could have met his mother, Kushina Uzumaki. She had to endure much of the same ridicule as he had, and she had made it through in one piece. She had become a respectful ninja of the village, found a man that she had loved, and had tried to start a family. I guess your luck was about as bad as mine, Mom. Naruto thought to himself idly before finally feeling the sweet embrace of sleep take him. 3 months later, the sun was rising, the air still holding its slight crispness from the night before, and the people of the village hidden in the leaves were beginning their day. The same held true for Naruto who, after not being able to sleep at all the night before due to nightmares, forced himself to head to the academy in a rather grumpy mood. It was once again the first day of classes, though this didn't cause any excitement to the boy. He had already had several first days of school after all his previous failures. Grinning for a brief moment, Naruto knew this year he would pass without a problem. He had learned from one of his dreams, and thanks to experimentation, confirmed that he retained his experience and memories from his shadow clones. With that knowledge and vastly improved long-term memory, Naruto had spent a lot of time in the library studying. He found out that the reason he couldn't do the regular clone technique was due to the fact of his almost non-existent chakra control due to his previous state's stupidity and exceptionally large chakra reserves. After discovering this, Naruto spent nearly all his extra time training his chakra control through various techniques he learned from scouring the library. He had so little control in his life. No control over where he lived, when the mobs would attack, when he could visit the Hokage, that anything he could control he tried to do so to the absolute best of his ability. So every day he made as many shadow clones as he could and trained his chakra control. He still trained in other aspects, but focused mainly on controlling his ocean of chakra. And though the QB never admitted it, she was somewhat impressed with the young boy. His control went from practically nothing to that of a strong Chunin, borderline Jounin in proportion to the amount of chakra he had in just 3 months. Naruto had also been attempting to recreate various techniques he had seen in his dreams, but so far had next to no success. He figured it was due to absolutely abysmal chakra control. Debating on which technique he would attempt to recreate from his dreams after school that day, Naruto found himself walking into the classroom of the advanced class. As he headed for his seat toward the back right side of the class, he looked at the few other people that had arrived early like him. Most he recognized slightly due to seeing them last year in the class below him. None of them seemed to stand out, though. Shrugging to himself, he sat down and, taking a leaf out of his pocket, stuck it to his forehead, figuring that if he had to wait, he might as well train too, instead of making the hundreds of shadow clones he had made earlier and sent off into the forest, do all the work. He couldn't care less that it made him look like an idiot. As he sat there, focusing as hard as he could to use as little chakra as was needed to keep the leaf where it was, he watched more and more students trickle in. Most were just from civilian families and weren't all that notable, but a few caught Naruto's eye. There were several clan heirs in this class. The thought of not really realizing this sooner made Naruto shake his head in disbelief at how freaking stupid he had been, which almost made the leaf fall off. Much to Naruto's happiness, however, he was able to keep it stuck to his forehead. As he refocused on keeping the leaf where it was, he suddenly heard a lot of squealing. Turning, he saw that none other than Sasuke Uchiha had walked in, causing practically every girl in the room to go nuts. Two in particular, Naruto was pretty sure one was the heiress to the Yamanaka clan and the other a civilian's daughter dressed in pink, fought viciously for the only seat next to Sasuke. Naruto rolled his eyes, and in doing so he noticed that the only girl in the room that didn't go crazy over Sasuke's entrance was one sitting in the back on the left side. He stared at her a moment. Something about her felt familiar. Before long, he bopped his open left hand with his right. That was Hinata Hyuga, heiress to her clan. Naruto just guessed she wasn't into emos, shrugged, and then went back to waiting for class to start. After all the students were in their seats and talking amongst themselves, Ikuro walked in. "All right, settle down, class. It's time we got started." Irika began to say. But when he noticed that no one was listening, he cleared his throat, then very loudly shouted, "Saiti down and be quiet right this instant, or I'll have you all doing extra homework for the next 3 months." All while utilizing the infamous big head jutsu. It worked like a charm, getting the entire class to shut up instantly. Naruto merely smirked at the show, having seen it so often before. "I'd like to welcome you all back to your final year in the academy. Work hard so that you may become proud shinobi of Konoha. We'll start with introductions first, then I'll go into your projected schedule for the year," and Irika started off. Naruto, however, quickly zoned him out, having heard all before. Looking out the window, he saw rain clouds in the distance. At first he frowned at the thought of training in the rain, but shortly after smiled. This would give him a chance to try out some of the water jutsu he had seen in his dreams. He knew he wouldn't have much of a chance pulling any of them off due to him not even touching any sort of elemental training, but the thought was just too enticing not to try. Hoping the rain clouds wouldn't leave before school got out, Naruto pulled out his small journal and began trying to figure out which moves he wanted to try first and which ones he might have a small chance in actually performing. As he was contemplating just how to go about the first jutsu he had decided on, Irika got to his name. "All right, Naruto, introduce yourself and list a few likes, dislikes, and dreams," Irika said, but soon saw that he was being completely ignored as Naruto just stared out the window. "Naruto, it's your turn." Still no response. A vein beginning to show on Irika's head in anger, he quickly grabbed a piece of chalk and threw it at high speed straight at Naruto's head. It connected with a loud snap as it broke into several pieces against the suddenly very alert boy. The sudden start and headache caused Naruto to lose concentration and drop his leaf. "What the heck, Irika-sensei?" Naruto suddenly yelled back, holding the side of his head and glaring. "You were the one that started daydreaming and wouldn't pay attention. You should know better to do that by now. It's your turn. Introduce yourself," Irika said, still annoyed with the boy. "Naruto fine. Whatever. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen and learning new things." This caused Irika's eyebrow to raise slightly at the new addition from last year. "I dislike the time it takes ramen to cook. As for my goal, that one's easy. I'm going to be Hokage one day." The boy finished loudly, ending up standing on his desk while pumping a fist in the air. This only caused the kids in class that knew of him and his constant failure to laugh at him. "You? Really? Ha 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 ha. This guy's too much," one random civilian-born kid asked while laughing. "How many times have you failed again? You sure you shouldn't aim your goal a little lower?" "Ha ha ha ha," a kid with glasses suggested. Several others put in their own input, laughing the entire time. This was quickly cut short, however, when Irika had had enough. "Quiet down," he roared before turning a worried glance to Naruto. He was shocked when Naruto looked him right in the eye, shrugged like it was no big deal, then picked the leaf he had been using earlier back up and placing it back on his forehead. To say the least, Irika was shocked. He had expected Naruto to start defending his claim to hide his sadness, not shrug it off like it was nothing. He was going to need to talk to Naruto after class. Irika recovered quickly, continued with what he had planned for the day. The day went by slowly as the sleep-deprived Naruto sat there training with his leaf. Too slowly, in his opinion. He was anxious to try out the water jutsu he had seen. After what seemed like forever, the day finally came to a close. Stretching in his seat, Naruto stood up to leave as Irika dismissed the class. However, Irika stopped him before he could speed off. "Naruto, I need to speak to you. Please stay behind," he said as the other kids filed out. "Oh, do I have to? I wanted to go train," Naruto whined as he walked up to Irika, the classroom almost completely empty. Irika waited till the last of his students left till he responded. Deciding to cut right to the chase, he quickly asked, "Naruto, I can tell something's changed about you. What happened? Are you okay?" Genuine concern in his voice. Naruto sheepishly scratched the back of his head as he answered, "Huh. You noticed that, did you? Everything's fine, Irika-sensei. I guess I just grew up a bit over the break." He finished with a smile. "Is that so? Tell me something. Have you been training by keeping that leaf on your forehead all throughout class today? Irika asked. You noticed that too, huh? Naruto said with a light laugh. Leaf still on his forehead. Yeah, I have. I read in a book at the library that people with large chakra reserves normally have really poor control, even if they train it. I realized that that was the reason why I couldn't create a clone all this time. So I decided to train my butt off till I could. I'm definitely going to pass this year. Believe it. Naruto finished with enthusiasm. He may not show it as much anymore, cause he realized it made him stand out more. But he was more than comfortable enough around Irika's sensei at this point that he showed it without worry. Irika, suffice it to say, was stunned. Naruto in a library? Naruto learning something in a library? And about something as complex as chakra control? He wordlessly tried to dispel a genjutsu just to make sure this was real. When nothing happened, he realized that Naruto certainly had changed, and apparently for the better. That's great, Naruto. To celebrate, how about I treat you to some ramen? Irika said, happy as could be that Naruto was finally succeeding, and on his own at that. Really? You mean it? Naruto asked excitedly. At Irika's nod, he leapt up in the air. Yahoo! I'm gonna eat ramen tonight. He yelled before calming down a little, a look of remembrance on his face. You mind if we meet up later, sensei? I wanted to go to the library to read some more, then train some too. Can we go after? He asked, almost pleading so not to miss out on ramen. Irika once again was stunned, even more so than last time. Naruto was putting off ramen to train, and of all things, study? He really had changed. Irika shook his head in amazement. Sure thing, Naruto. What time do you think you'll be done? Naruto crossed his arms and though about it for a moment. How does 8:30 sound to you, Irika-sensei? Sounds good to me. Just promise me you won't overtrain, okay? I'm sure keeping that leaf on your forehead all day wasn't easy. I don't want you collapsing from chakra exhaustion. Irika said. I promise, Naruto said with a smile. All right, later, Irika-sensei, Naruto said as he left the room. Naruto left the academy in much higher spirits than he had entered in. Weariness from lack of sleep forgotten, Naruto was about to start heading for the library when he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. Or more specifically, someone. Hinata Hyuga stood next to the gate of the academy, looking around frantically. The girl looking more and more distraught as time went on. The sight made Naruto curious. Shrugging, he made 3 shadow clones. Go study up at the library, guys. I'm going to check something out. Sure thing, boss. You got it. Will do. The 3 clones replied before hinging into 3 completely average-looking kids and heading off. Naruto looked back to the distraught Hyuga to find her continuing to look around in every direction, every so often checking the sun to see what time it was, though failing due to the cloud-ridden sky. Weird. What is up with her? Naruto pondered as he debated on just going over to talk to her or watching for a while longer. His answer, however, was made for him when, after a few more minutes of looking around frantically, the girl quickly ran off. Checking the position of the clouds to when they would start their downpour, Naruto decided he had more than enough time and decided to follow her. Hinging himself to look like a cat, the young ninja leapt rooftop to rooftop and quickly spotted the girl running through the village. As he followed her, he wondered why she looked so frightened. Was traveling through the village alone in the middle of the afternoon really that scary? It's not like she was the container of the 9-tailed fox like he was. It wasn't long before Naruto was able to figure out that she was headed to the clan compound. Why the fear then? Was she going to get in trouble if she didn't get home in time? Shaking his head in disinterest, Naruto decided it would be a waste of time to continue to follow the girl. Changing direction, the cat headed for one of the lesser-used training grounds. As he did, he looked at the exceedingly dark clouds lightly rumbling overhead. Anyone could tell that they would burst any time now. He figured he would have just enough time to get out to the training grounds before they did. However, something stopped him right in his tracks. the sound of a girl screaming. It was only for a split second because it was almost immediately muffled out. The fact that it came from right where he had been not seconds before instantly told Naruto who had made the noise. Dropping his hinge to move more naturally, Naruto moved as quickly as he could towards where he figured the girl was in danger. Coming to a well-secluded back alley, he saw Hinata being dragged by two men farther into the alleyway while simultaneously being tied up. The girl was struggling as best she could, but was quickly subdued when one of the men punched her hard in the gut, knocking the wind out of her. Naruto cursed. Where's the village's ANBU when you needed them? Or the girl's guard for that matter? Wasn't she the heiress? Shaking his head to focus on the task at hand, he formed 5 shadow clones. 3 of you circle around and pincer them. Don't let them escape no matter what. Then, pointing to the nearest one to him, he said, "You go get help," then to the last one, "You're with me. Let's go." All 5 clones nodded, and the 3 headed off to stop the kidnappers while the single one went to go get help. Naruto and his clone then quickly charged the 2 men who had just made it around the corner of the alley and out of sight. Quickly rounding the corner, Naruto shouted to slow them down. "Hey, stop right there." The 2 men were in the middle of finishing tying the girl up when Naruto did so. They both shot their heads up at the noise. "What? I thought you said no one was around." Ryu, one of the men, who was about 6 foot, had black greasy hair and wore all dark clothing and a trench coat, said to the other. "No one was a second ago, Kenshi." Ryu replied hastily. He was about 5'2", had a completely bald head, and was wearing an outfit similar to his companion. Whipping out a kunai, Naruto threatened, "Let her go, or you'll regret it." It was then that he noticed both men wore their forehead protectors as belts, protectors with the symbol for Kumo Ninja crossed out. "Let's kill these brats quickly and get this job over with," Kenshi said menacingly while he pulled out a cleaver from inside his trench coat. "Agreed," Ryu said, who unceremoniously dropped the tied-up Hinata and pulled out 2 nasty-looking daggers. Naruto wasn't liking his odds. Not only was he facing ninja from a different country, but missing mean at that, and ones that were good enough to infiltrate the village and attempt to kidnap the Hyuga's heiress in broad daylight. Well, not exactly daylight, considering it was at that moment the clouds above had decided to unleash their barely held contents. As it began to pour, the 2 men charged Naruto and his clone. Hoping his other clones would get there soon, Naruto charged back, blocking a downward chop from Kenshi's cleaver with his kunai. "Kami, this guy is strong," Naruto inwardly exclaimed as he pumped some of his chakra through his body to hold the cleaver back. Kenshi just responded to the increase in strength to more strength of his own. As Naruto was slowly pushed down to one knee, he saw out of the corner of his eye that his clone was in a similar predicament, doing his best to fend off Ryu's daggers with 2 kunai. Naruto felt Kenshi put even more strength against his cleaver. He knew he was about to be overpowered when he heard a pop to his left. "What? A damn clone. Arr!" he heard Ryu yell. Just as he did, though, Kenshi suddenly yelled in pain, letting up his assault on Naruto to step back and turn around to see one of the clones grinning with a bloody kunai in hand. Naruto didn't waste this chance as he charged forward and cut deeply on the back of the man's leg, right at the knee joint. Howling in pain, Kenshi clutched the wound as best as he could as he fell to the ground. The clone, seeing the opening, charged forward and embedded his kunai right into the man's right eye socket deeply, killing him. The clone and Naruto turned to see that one of the other clones that had been distracting Ryu popped from taking a hit. Naruto then broke out with a large smile, already feeling victorious from the information he just got from the clone that had died. While the real Naruto was distracted by the influx of memory, the clone that had killed Kenshi charged forward, only to be taken out in 2 swift movements. "It seems you aren't to be taken lightly. I'll end this now," Ryu said, uncaring his partner had died and now deadly serious. As he spoke, his daggers began to crack and spark as he channeled lightning chakra through them. In one swift movement, he came at Naruto, thrusting one of his daggers straight at his face faster than he could evade. Naruto, reacting on pure instinct, threw up his left arm to shield the deadly blow. The dagger went straight through his arm like a hot knife through butter, splitting his bone in two. Stopping at the hilt, the blade stopped barely an inch away from his face. Finally, the lightning channeled through the blade sent a nasty shock all throughout his body. The shock was also enhanced due to him being soaked. Aha! Naruto cried in pain as he dropped to his knees but managed to keep the blade from his face. Ryu, however, merely went to stab him with his other dagger, but then suddenly froze stock still. Before Naruto could react, a woman suddenly came out of nowhere and punched the missing Nin, at the same time placing a tag with a seal on his chest. This caused him to pass out unceremoniously. As Naruto regained feeling throughout his body and held his pierced arm, he got a better look at the woman who had come to his rescue. She stood about 5'6", had black, shoulder-length, untamed hair, and red eyes. She wore a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible. Over this, she had on very broad material, which resembled bandages with a pattern on it similar to those of rose thorns. Her hands and upper thighs were also wrapped in bandages. "Boss, are you okay?" The clone that had gone to get help asked worriedly as he ran over to Naruto, who was numb all over but also had a searing pain throughout his entire body. Grunting as his clone helped him lean against the side of the closest wall, he ripped out the dagger and then responded, "Why yeah, I'll be fine. No worries." He got out through gritted teeth, idly noticing that it stopped raining. "You okay, kid?" The woman asked as she hurried over to him after quickly tying up Ryu and immediately began inspecting Naruto's arm, causing him to freeze up despite her words of concern, fearing it was just a trick. "Relax, boss. She's Hinata's escort." The clone explained when he did. Naruto relaxed, but only ever so slightly. "I'm going to let the other one know the battle's over, boss. You okay with that?" he asked. After Naruto nodded, he dispelled. As he did, he got the memories of the clone heading as quick as he could back to the academy, fully intent on getting Irika to help, but instead running into the woman who had rescued him. When she forced him to stop his mad dash, asking if he knew where Hinata was, he quickly led her here, explaining that he and Hinata were in danger, him only being a clone sent to get help, and explaining why he was in the middle of the kidnapping in the first place. "We need to get you to a hospital soon," the woman said with authority as she unwrapped her left arm and used the wrappings to cover his wound, deciding to find out how the kid knew a forbidden jutsu when he wasn't even a shinobi yet till another time. "But first I want to know where Hinata is. Your clone said both you and her were in danger." "One of my other clones took her away from the battle," Naruto explained, quick healing allowing him to think straight with a clear head, the pain from the electrocution almost gone, but since that one just dispelled, he should be headed back with her. The woman hid her shock. An academy student that could make not one, but two shadow clones? Instead of voicing her thoughts, she nodded. "Good," then smiled. "I really have to thank you for what you did. It was really brave, and I'm sure you saved Hinata's life." Then she had a look like she just remembered something. "I'm Kurenai Yuhei, Hinata's escort," she said, holding out her hand. "Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said with a grin and shook her hand. "The QB kid," Kurenai inwardly thought. It was then that his clone jumped down into the alleyway, carrying an unconscious, now untied, Hinata bridal style. When he did, Kurenai rushed over to him. "Hinata." "It's okay. She just passed out from the shock of what happened. She isn't hurt," the clone informed as he passed over Hinata to Kurenai, then went over to Naruto to help him to his feet. Kurenai sighed in relief when she had finished checking that what the clone had said was indeed true. Still holding Hinata, she turned around to face Naruto. "I need you to tell me everything that happened from the beginning. But first we need to take care of this mess and get you to the hospital." Naruto grimaced at the thought of going to the hospital, having been there so many times in the past. But he also knew that it would take a while for his arm to repair, even with his accelerated healing. Nodding, Naruto finally found his feet, so he dispelled the last shadow clone. Not a moment too soon, because just after he did so, several ANBU leapt into the alleyway. "About damn time," Naruto inwardly grumbled as one of the ANBU operatives wearing a bear face mask spoke. Kurenai-san, what happened? Attempted kidnapping. Luckily, I was able to stop it, thanks to Naruto slowing down their escape. He needs medical attention immediately. Other than that, everyone is fine. After I get Hinata to the safety of her home, I'll give a full report to the Hokage Bear-san. Kurenai responded. As she did, Naruto inwardly started freaking out. How am I supposed to explain being able to use shadow clones? If I tell them I learned them from my dreams, they'll think I'm crazy and lock me up. Oh man, what do I do? Bear nodded. I'll make sure Naruto gets treated and meet up with you there for debrief. Kurenai nodded back and replied, see you then, before she jumped off, heading for the compound. I'll leave the rest to you, Bear said to the other ANBU there, before grabbing Naruto and shoe-shining to the hospital. Naruto was glad that Bear had volunteered to take him to the hospital. Out of practically all the other ANBU, Bear was one of the ones that actually helped the kid whenever he was assigned to watch over the boy, unlike the others that would just leave the kid to his own devices or help mobs find him. After getting his arm healed by one of the medic ninja on duty, Naruto and Bear headed for the Hokage's tower. The whole time, Naruto began to get more and more nervous, unsure how to get out of this situation. By the time they got to the outside of the Hokage's door, Naruto was so nervous he was in a light sweat. Bear opened the door, and the two of them went inside to find that Kurenai was already there, waiting for them. As Naruto shut the door behind him, the Hokage began. Now that we're all finally here, you can tell me why I have two Kyumo missing mean currently being interrogated. The Hokage said while looking at Kurenai, idly noticing Naruto's wardrobe change. Of course, Hokage-sama, I'll start at the beginning. This afternoon, I was headed to pick up Hinata from the academy and take her back home, as usual, when I was stopped by a man looking for his missing daughter. I didn't know it at the time, but the man was under a jinjutsu. I assume it was from one of the two that tried to kidnap Hinata. I decided to help the man, thinking that being a little late wouldn't hurt. What I didn't know was that when the man shook my hand in gratitude when I agreed to help, a jinjutsu was put on me as well. Luckily, I was able to recognize what was happening early enough to break free and look for Hinata. It was then that I heard the girl scream momentarily when they initially took her. I headed towards the source of the sound as fast as I could. There I found Naruto fighting off the two shinobi as best as he could. I had to kill one of them to prevent him from taking out Naruto, and was able to incapacitate the other with a jinjutsu. I think you know the rest, Hokage-sama. Kurenai finished. The Hokage merely nodded and looked at Naruto. And how did you end up fighting the two shinobi? Naruto, however, was in a state of shock. Did she just lie? She just lied. For me. What the heck? Luckily, Naruto was able to recover enough to respond when the question was directed at him. WL, I had stayed back after school to talk to Iruka-sensei. When I left, I noticed two guys following one of my classmates. I got curious and followed, only to see them kidnap the girl. I didn't think anyone would believe me if I tried to go get help, so I tried to stop them on my own. That's when Kurenai-san showed up and saved both of us. Naruto quickly lied, years of having to live dealing with the worst the village could throw at him coming in handy. Sarutobi nodded. Very well. He said, writing something down on a piece of paper before replying. And well done, Naruto. If it wasn't for your bravery, Kurenai may not have gotten there in time. You saved your classmate's life. Gee, it really isn't that big of a deal. Naruto replied while scratching the back of his head in an embarrassed manner to hide him freaking out about Kurenai lying for him. I believe that's all I need. Thank you both once more. Bear, could you please escort Naruto back home? The Hokage asked, but before Bear could respond, Kurenai spoke up. That's okay, Hokage-sama. I could take Naruto home. I've got to run an errand in that direction anyway. Very well, Sarutobi said while nodding dismissed. Naruto got increasingly more wary and nervous as Kurenai lead him out of the Hokage's tower and down the street. The two walked in silence for a while before Kurenai suddenly stretched. Man, I'm glad I was able to pull that off. For a moment there, I thought he would see through my lie. You didn't do half bad either, spilling that BS like that without a second thought. Good job. Naruto had jumped slightly when Kurenai spoke, ready to bolt if he needed to, but was soon surprised by what she said, openly admitting to lying to the Hokage. After listening to her, he carefully responded in a whisper, "Why did you lie for me?" "Why?" Good question," Kurenai said while propping her right arm up with her left and grabbing her chin in a contemplative manner. "I guess I thought I owed you one. You saved Hinata after all. She's like a little sister to me. But don't think you're going to get away without explaining how you can perform that jutsu. If I don't like the story you tell me, I'll march you straight back to the Hokage's office and admit to everything," Kurenai said, causing Naruto to freeze up once more in fear. He wasn't sure how he could explain how he knew the Shadow Clone Jutsu, but he also didn't want to get in trouble with the Hokage, one of the only people he cared about. Naruto's musings were cut short, however, when Kurenai spoke again. "But first things first. I am starving. Time to find some food. Anything in particular you in the mood for?" she asked, looking at the tense Naruto. "Well, I was supposed to meet Iruka there soon anyway. Maybe I can use him as a distraction." Naruto thought before replying. "Ramen sound good?" "Ramen?" Kurenai asked. "Yeah, ramen. I just so happen to know where they make the best ramen on Earth. Is that okay with you?" Naruto asked back, still unsure around the red-eyed Jounin. Kurenai laughed lightly before answering. "Sure, why not? I haven't had ramen in a while. Lead the way." Nodding, Naruto did just that. It was odd, against all his logic, to not trust the woman. Her easygoing attitude had a calming effect on the blonde. By the time they had made it to Kaku's, he was much more relaxed, though still inwardly wary of her. Walking into the stand, the two were greeted by "Hey Naruto." "Hey, Ayame-san," Naruto responded. "Where's the old man?" "Dad had to run out to grab a few things." "Who's your friend?" Ayame asked. "This is Kurenai-san. I just met her today. She's one of my classmates' escorts." Naruto said. "Nice to meet you. I am Mayama," she said to Kurenai. "A pleasure to meet you," Kurenai said with a smile. "What will the two of you be having?" "Beef ramen, please," Naruto replied without hesitation. Impending interrogation or not, he was going to enjoy his ramen. Taking a moment to look over the menu, Kurenai ordered, "I think I'll try the extra spicy shrimp ramen." "Coming right up," Ayame said as she went to work. "All right, Naruto, I think you have some explaining to do," Kurenai said, now completely serious. "How did you learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu?" Naruto began to sweat lightly. He had only come up with two options while they had traveled to the ramen stand, neither that he liked. But Kurenai had saved his "but" from the Hokage, so she deserved at least some sort of explanation. Not wanting to tell the truth, be seen as crazy, and be locked up the rest of his life, Naruto went with option 2, though it was just as, if not more, risky. "Time for you to take some flack from me, Kyuubi," Naruto inwardly thought, though mostly to himself, then braced himself. "Well, Kurenai-san, to tell you the truth, the Kyuubi taught me." "What?" Kurenai responded. To say the least, she was stunned. Out of all the things to come out of the boy's mouth, that wasn't something she thought would. The kid knew he was the container of the nine-tailed fox. And not only that, but he had been in contact with it and was learning ninjutsu from it. Kurenai didn't know what to say, so ended up saying the first thing that came to mind. "You know you're the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi?" "Yeah, I figured that out a while ago," Naruto said quietly, so Ayame wouldn't hear. Still in shock, Kurenai intelligently replied, "How?" "It happened shortly after I failed the last exam. That much was true. A mob caught me and was beating me. They tormented me and kept throwing insults at me, calling me worthless. They just kept going and going, never seeming to stop. I just got so angry. I unconsciously tapped into the fuzzbut's chakra. That was a lie. I was able to survive and escape thanks to that. The Kyuubi made contact with me a few days after the encounter. That's how it happened. That last part was also a lie, but with that first bit of truth in there and the shock she was experiencing, she hopefully wouldn't be able to notice. At least, Naruto hoped she wouldn't. Kurenai took a moment to process this information. The kid, who was supposed to be protected from finding out he was a Jinchuriki via the Third's law, found out inadvertently because a mob attacked him. She had heard about how bad the kid had had it, but shrugged most of it off as exaggeration, never seeing the incidents take place with her own eyes. But for Naruto to be put through one that he felt threatened enough and angry enough to draw upon the beast's power, it must have been bad. Kurenai unconsciously clenched her fists, the heat of anger growing from within. She had always had a soft spot for kids. That's why she became a Jounin instructor in the first place, due to her being picked on when she was little because of her red eyes. She wondered about the other stories concerning Naruto being true. The thought that they could have even been half true made her angry all the more. Not anymore. Not if she had anything to say about it. Kei Kurenai-san, Naruto nervously whispered. The sound brought her out of her inner musing. Looking at Naruto, she realized her rage must have been written all over her face, seeing how scared the boy looked and how he was on the edge of his stool, ready to run at any moment. Sorry, she said as calm and soothing as she could. I just dislike those that pick on others that are different. I'm sure you've had a hard life because of people just like that, she said sadly. Naruto relaxed as she did, breathing a slight sigh of relief. He said quietly. It was then that Ayam had finished their order. Here you two go, 1 beef and 1 extra spicy shrimp ramen, she said cheerfully. As she did, Naruto instantly perked up. Come to Papa, he said eagerly and began tearing into the dish. Kurenai smiled at his enthusiasm before starting on hers. After a short time of the two of them eating their food, Kurenai spoke. So, Naruto. This instantly got his attention. He didn't stop eating, but it was noticeable how much slower he was at the task now. What are we going to do about this? Naruto paused, slurped up the noodles in his mouth, and then set his chopsticks down. Can we just not tell anyone? At this, Kurenai raised an eyebrow. I mean, if we did, then the old man wouldn't have a reason to keep the law that says no one can talk about the fox. I think that. I fear that the mobs will get worse if people knew that I knew. Especially if they knew I was okay with it. This made Kurenai raise both eyebrows in shock. She looked like she was about to speak when Naruto cut her off. I know what you're thinking. How can anyone be okay with having a being of pure rage and malice sealed inside of them? I mean, no one would willingly want that, but I understand why it had to be done. Why the fourth had to seal it in me. And when I look at it that way, I'm okay with it. For now, at least. But I just feel it would be better if no one knew. Can't we just leave the way things are? Naruto finished, looking up at Kurenai with pleading eyes. Kurenai almost couldn't hold herself back from enveloping the boy in a hug and telling him everything would be okay. The idea that had been forming in her head since her small flare of rage earlier solidified. She would help this kid. She refused to do anything less. She smiled ever so slightly before speaking. I think I can agree to that on a few conditions. Naruto instantly brightened when she answered, only to frown in suspicion at her mention of conditions. What are they? He asked wearily. I can't have you running around learning whatever techniques the QB sees fit to teach you without someone to watch over you to make sure you don't hurt yourself. So my first condition is that you train under me. This made Naruto's eyes widen in shock. She was going to train him? He wasn't even a full-fledged ninja yet either. If I'm going to be your sensei, that means that you'll have to do as I say when it pertains to training. And as of right now, I don't want you using any techniques unless I say you're allowed to use them. So no more shadow clones till I'm satisfied that you won't make more than you are able and kill yourself. This made Naruto frown. Second, I want you to fill me in as much as you can about your contact with the QB. What it tries to do, what it tells you, what it teaches you whenever you use its chakra, everything. Understand? Naruto nodded, not sure he'd be able to lie his way out of that condition. Thirdly, if I decide that we ever need to bring all of this to the Hokage for any reason, you go without a fuss. And if I think we need more people in on our little secret, I can and will do so. Sound like a deal? Naruto stared at his mostly eaten bowl of ramen and thought about his options. If he said no, she'd probably just haul his but straight back to the old man. But if he said yes, he'd get a sensei to train him to be an actual shinobi, something he desperately wanted. She may restrict him in the beginning, but it would be worth it in the long run. That, and he'd finally have someone to talk to about the QB. That sealed the deal for him. He smiled, a true smile. When do we start, Kurenai-sensei? She smiled right back. It felt good making the kid smile like that. Tomorrow sound good? Sounds great, Naruto replied happily. It was then that Irika showed up. Naruto, I should have known you'd already be here. He then noticed Kurenai. Ah, Kurone, what a pleasant surprise. I didn't know you liked ramen. Kurenai shrugged. There's nothing wrong with it. Besides, it's what the kid wanted to eat to celebrate. Celebrate? Irika asked. Naruto instantly picked up on what Kurenai was doing and chimed in. Oh man, Irika-sensei, you should have been there. I was so awesome. Naruto then told Irika what had happened earlier, slightly altered of course. When Irika expressed his disbelief, Kurenai convinced him otherwise, telling her part in the altered story. By the end of it, Irika was thoroughly impressed. I'm so proud of you, Naruto. Noticing something was off, then fearlessly stepping in to save a classmate. There really is cause for celebration. Eat as much as you want, Naruto. It's all on me, Irika said. Really? You serious? Naruto asked, stars in his eyes. Irika chuckled, go wild. Yahoo! Ayame-san, keep the bowls coming, Naruto exclaimed. A round of ramen for the hero, coming right up, Ayame said, having heard the story as well. Later that night, Naruto lay in his bed, trying to sleep, though he knew it was in vain. During the whole event, it really didn't have time to hit him till then. Today, he had taken his first kill. It shouldn't have bothered him that much, though. It was an enemy ninja trying to harm one of his classmates, and above all Konoha. Now, to be frank with himself, Naruto really didn't care much for his village. He viewed the village as its people, and most of them hated him. But if he was to become a shinobi, he had to have loyalty to his village. So he would protect it, but only because he had to. But that still didn't take away from the fact that the man he killed had tried to kill him, so it shouldn't be affecting him this bad. But it was. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw him killing the man. Saw the man's lifeless eye as he lay on the ground dead, blood pooling underneath him from the wounds Naruto had inflicted. He felt himself sticking his kunai deep into the man's skull, right through his eye. It made him feel sick. Having trouble sleeping? The QB suddenly asked with an all-to-knowing voice. You, Naruto thought with rage. You're doing this to me, aren't you? The QB laughed. I wish that I could claim that, but you have no one to blame for this but yourself. Just can't get your mind off it, can you? Not that I blame you. Killing is just so much fun. I have to thank you. I really didn't expect to experience bloodshed from you for a while yet. You certainly aim to please, don't you? Naruto could practically hear the smirk she had at the end of that, which only pissed him off even more. He knew that was what the QB wanted, but it was hard not to be drawn in. I did what I had to do. It was my first kill. I'll get over it. You mean you'll get used to it and then you'll enjoy it? The QB cut it. Shut up. I'm not listening to you anymore, fuzzbutt. Leave me alone. Naruto inwardly shouted in a desperate attempt to get the fox to shut up. He really didn't want to deal with her right now. Oh, so you did notice my sexy ass last time you were in here. I was wondering if you did. You are a growing boy after all dash, the QB said, only to be cut off by Naruto. Shut up, he roared, and then noticed he had, in his rage, gone into his mindscape. He stood in the middle of a vast, bright, white-walled chamber. In front of him, tall bars like a prison barred his entrance into most of the room. The room itself was furnished with all a manner of odd furniture, giant throw pillows, mirrors, fountains, statues, one giant shogi board, and various other items. Naruto had totally revamped the place from a dark, dungy sewer into a vast white room, leaving the inside for the QB to decorate as she saw fit. He had done so to get the fox to slow down the flow of her chakra into his system. He didn't regret his decision. After all, who would want to be mentally handicapped due to chakra poisoning? The QB lay sprawled out on one of said giant throw pillows, looking at Naruto with a raised eyebrow and a mischievous smile on her face. She was in a humanoid form. She sported dark orange-red fur covering her body, though barely concealing anything, long fox ears and 9 ever-swishing tails. Color me impressed. I didn't expect you to be such a man of action that you would come in here to claim me. And at such a young age, too. You an early bloomer. Why? Naruto asked quietly, rage seeping through every word. Why what? The QB asked curiously, very satisfied at the rage her container was showing. Why do you do it? Why do you torment me? Always pushing, day and night. Why? Naruto yelled. Because, my dear kid, I want free. And you are what stands in my way of that freedom. I will do whatever it takes to become free. The QB explained in a serious tone, but then instantly grinned evilly and switched back to her more mischievous one. And it's just so much fun to torture you. Thanks to the way my dad sealed you and me. We both know that if I die, you die, and I will blow myself up with an explosive tag before I ever let that happen. Naruto said dangerously. The QB frowned at that. She had gotten carried away in her storytelling when she was telling him about his parents, and had let that little detail slip. The boy had been so enraged at the time, though, that she had hoped he didn't remember. Apparently he did. Why? To protect your oh, so precious village? I thought you hated them. The QB shot back. Most of them? Yeah, I honestly could care less if you kill them right now. Even more so, cause I'm not even a ninja yet. But there are people I care about in this village. I'd take you with me just to protect them. Naruto said, deadly serious. The QB growled at Naruto's declaration, but then quickly smiled and stood, walking over to him with a smooth, flowing grace. As she did, Naruto took a step back from the cage, expecting a trick. Upon reaching the bars, the QB leaned against them in a very seductive way. You've got a big mouth, Naruto-kun, but I know you. I've known you all your life. And if I know anything about you, it's that you are a coward. She finished, turning her smile into an evil one. What? Imnokuwarat? Naruto yelled back, caught off guard by the sudden shift. Oh, really? Then let me ask you something, Naruto-kun. How many times have you tried to kill yourself and failed? The QB asked, triumphant smirk already on her face. What? Where you dash, Naruto began, but was cut off. Don't play dumb with me. I was there during each of your 8 attempts. The seal recognized the danger you were in and alerted me. And every single time you tried, you couldn't go through with it, or just plain failed. You are a coward, too afraid of death to take your own life. So I call your bluff. You aren't going to do jack shit. The QB countered. Naruto felt like an idiot. Of course the seal had alerted her. He had hoped that since it was before he had got in touch with the fox that she wouldn't have been awake. He had found her the first time sleeping after all. Poor Naruto-kun. All that pain, all that sorrow, that never-ending abyss of being all alone. You took beatings, torture, rape, and even though you were at the end of your rope, you still couldn't end your own life. Even your own genes are against you. After all, your advanced healing certainly didn't help that time you tried to cut your wrists. The QB smiled evilly at the now, crying silently Naruto. Look at you. First trying to hide it behind a mask of happiness, tomfoolery, and boundless energy. Now trying to hide it behind a mask of maturity and sense of purpose. It doesn't change the fact that you're still pathetic. You're wrong about one thing, Naruto said amidst tears before looking the QB in the eyes. What she saw shocked her. There was a small spark of fire in his eyes. I may be pathetic, but I'm not alone anymore. I have the old man, and even though he doesn't see me often, I'll be able to see him more once I become a ninja. I have Irika-sensei, and now I even have Kurenai-sensei. I'm not alone. With their help, I'm sure I can change. I won't be pathetic. I'll be strong. You'll see. Naruto finished with a glare, an air of promise about him as he said his final line, after which he phased out of the QB's sight, signifying he had left his mindscape. Damn it, that completely backfired. Looks like it'll be next to impossible to break him that way. I'll have to change tactics. The QB thought after his abrupt departure. Then she remembered his last words and thought with a smirk about Cammy damn time, Kit. Chapter 2. Giving no fucks. Naruto sat up in his bed. He was tired from a short time dealing with the QB, but he knew he wasn't sleeping that night. So he got up, took a nice ice-cold shower, put on some water to boil, then grabbed one of the books his clones had gotten for him from the library, a study and overview on the various taijutsu styles of the world. Naruto raised an eyebrow at his clone selection. He had recently been reading nothing but chakra control theory books, some ninjutsu scrolls, surprisingly enough, history books, and some battle tactics books. But thinking over why the clone had grabbed the book, he couldn't help but agree with his reasoning. Naruto had practically no taijutsu training at all and fought mostly with instinct. After his fight with the missing Cloud Ninja from the day before, the clone obviously recognized that he needed some training in the area. After making an instant cup of ramen and settling down in the only chair he owned, the boy began reading through the book as he ate. As he read, a small smile crept up on his face. He hoped Kurenai-sensei let him use shadow clones again soon. He had some training to do. Spending the night reading, morning came faster than Naruto thought it would. After taking a moment to get ready for class and grabbing the only book he was unable to read the night before and a bag of nuts he had gathered a few days ago to eat for lunch, the blonde soon left for class. A light mist hung in the early morning air as Naruto walked through the streets. Despite his ever-persistent exhaustion, he had a lighter step this morning. He was determined to become stronger and finally had someone that was willing to train him and had the time to do so, unlike Irika-sensei. Soon enough, he found himself headed towards his seat in the classroom, early as usual. He noticed only one other kid was there before him. Glancing at him a moment and trying to drudge up old memories, he determined that the kid was Shino, the only Aburame in the class. Shrugging, Naruto opened the book he had brought and started reading, then blinked. Flipping the book over, he looked at the title, Tales of a Gutsy Ninja. Why would his clone grab a work of fiction? He had more important things to read. Oh well, at least the main character's name was the same as his. That was pretty cool. Deciding he had nothing better to do, the blonde shrugged once more, stuck a leaf on his forehead, then began reading. Naruto completely ignored the other students as they made their way in, getting lost in his book until class began, and Irika made Naruto put away. As much as Naruto was finding that he loved history, class seemed to drag on forever as Irika talked about tactics used during a skirmish in the First Shinobi War, aka mostly useless information. Naruto nearly leapt for joy as he heard Irika dismiss the class for lunch. As he sat there, deciding what he wanted to use the time for, a sudden voice broke his musing, hello. Turning, he saw it was the Hyuga he had rescued earlier. Slightly surprised at the fact she was talking to him, he simply replied, hi. After which, she seemed to freeze for a second before taking a breath and continuing, if it's okay, could ISP speak WW with you F for a moment. On the RR roof. She finished almost in a whisper. Once again, Naruto was surprised. From what he knew of Hyugas, they were stuck-up pricks that accepted no help and asked for none, and certainly didn't thank anyone that tried to help or succeeded in doing so. So once again, he answered dumbstruck, sure, I guess. Thank you, she said, once more in a whisper, and headed for the roof. Still surprised, Naruto followed silently. Once on the roof, Hinata led him over to the only tree up there. He waited, as she seemed to be gathering herself, then tensed slightly as she spoke. He heard FR from Kurenai-sensei. About why you did. How USS saved me. IW wanted T to thank YYU. She said, once more barely above a whisper. Oh, well, you're welcome. It's not like I could just sit by and watch. Naruto dropped off. Nodding, Hinata replied, thank you. But there's SS something you need T to know. What's that? Naruto asked. And no one knows. She said. Knows what? Naruto replied, confused. And no one knows, about the eye incident. The Hokage decided to keep it secret. LS stress on MMI father. Only YYU and those involved know about it. FF for safety RR reasons. Kurenai-sensei asked me to tell Wii U on her B behalf, so that why you didn't tell anyone else. B before she CC could talk to you, A at LL least. SOM. Hinata finally broke off, somehow managing out her short speech despite her growing insecurities. He's keeping a secret? Naruto started, about to ask more questions when he started to think about it. Keeping his secret was probably the best thing to do. From what he had heard about the head of the Hyuga clan, he was an extremely arrogant, rude son of a bitch. Someone who thought the village should be thanking him and his clan for the privilege of being a part of it would without a doubt use his own daughter's attempted kidnapping in broad daylight to grab for more power. Not to mention the tension that would result when Hayashi demands recompense from Kyomo. Coming out of his musings, Naruto said slowly, I guess, since it's the best for everyone and all, I'll keep quiet about it. So you don't have to worry, Hinata. The girl blushed slightly when Naruto said her name and managed out another, almost silent, thank you. It was then that Naruto's stomach decided to make itself known. Blushing and scratching the back of his head sheepishly, Naruto chuckled. Sorry about that. I guess I'm hungrier than I thought. Then he proceeded to dig out his bag of nuts and sat down under the shade of the tree. After popping a few in his mouth and eating happily, Naruto held the bag up towards the silent Hinata and offered, Want some? Still somewhat unsure how to deal with this much interaction with the boy that came out of nowhere and saved her just the day before, the girl just nodded and took a few. Delicious, she thought as she ate them, unbeknownst to her with a small smile on her face. She was broken out of her thoughts when Naruto spoke up. Feel free to help yourself. I don't have much, but I don't mind sharing. He finished, eating some more as he did. It was then that Hinata remembered that she was carrying her packed, homemade bento. Thank you, but I already have my own lunch, she said, realizing that she might have just been really rude. About to stutter out a frantic apology, Naruto stopped her in her tracks. Oh, that's cool. Well, you're still welcome to eat as much as you want. Then he added, completely on impulse, Hey, I've got an idea. Want to join me for lunch? Stuck like a deer in headlights, Hinata just nodded dumbly and sat down under the tree next to the blonde. As she unpacked her bento, she tried to think of something to say, but sadly came up short. Not that the fact she couldn't think of anything to talk about should be surprising considering who she was sitting next to. As she began to eat, her mind raced. Naruto was turning out to be completely different from what she expected him to be. She had asked some of her classmates what the boy was like and had gotten the same secondhand information she mostly already had. He was loud, obnoxious, a prankster, bad to be around or hang out with, details kids had picked up from their parents, always going on about being the Hokage, loves ramen, etc. Sure, she had seen some of what the other kids had said about him yesterday, but just talking with him today, she seemed to be getting a different picture. Hinata's train of thought suddenly derailed when Naruto suddenly asked her a question. Completely missing it due to zoning out, Hinata quickly blushed and stuttered out, huh? Naruto smiled. She had been zoning out, and he knew he had caught her unawares. I asked if that was homemade. It looks and smells delicious. Oh, why, yes it is, Hinata replied. Then with a sudden idea, added, would you like to try some? Naruto paused for a moment, and Hinata almost giggled at the face he was making. It was obvious he was trying his hardest to say no, though he clearly really wanted to try some. Finally, the poor boy managed out, Thanks. I really appreciate it. But it looks like you worked really hard on that, and I would hate for you to go hungry. Hinata, finally relaxing a little, shook her head. I don't mind sharing. Please, try some. Once again, the girl almost giggled at the excited face the boy made, but how he forced himself to reply somewhat calmly. You sure? I mean, you don't have to feel obligated. Nodding her head and confirming it was okay, with him, she handed him the bento. Naruto tentatively took the lunch and tried a well-portioned bite, freezing instantly. Hinata looked at Naruto expectantly for a solid minute before she began to get worried. After another minute, she was fidgeting around uncomfortably and about to apologize about how bad the food tasted when suddenly Naruto calmly took the chopsticks he had used to take the bite out of his mouth, set them and the bento on the ground to the side away from Hinata. The very suddenly spun around and grabbed the girl by the shoulders while at the same time saying, "Hinata!" Suffice it to say, the girl squeaked loudly and jumped slightly, about to run away or pass out or both, when she noticed Naruto's eyes. Said blonde's eyes were, in fact, glazed over with stars. That was amazing, he proclaimed loudly, causing the girl to squeak once more. I've never tasted anything so good. Well, next to ramen, of course, but still. Wow, how'd you learn to cook so well? Could you teach me? Hinata blushed a deep red at the praise Naruto was giving her. Only Kurenai had ever done the same. Noticing the boy was still holding her and looking at her excitedly and with expectation, Hinata remembered his questions. I can't know how to CC cook because all female C-clan members are TT taught to. She managed out. Really? That's so cool, the blonde replied, then reiterated his question while on his knees and holding his hands together in a very begging-like manner. Could you please teach me? Please? Pretty please? I'd give anything to eat delicious food like that every day. Naruto begged while unconsciously giving his very best puppy dog face. This caused Hinata to blush even more and go wide-eyed at the overly cute sight, realizing he would only plead more if she didn't answer, and realizing that she couldn't take much more of it. She finally said, "Okay." Really? You mean it? Naruto asked back, excited. Getting a shaky nod in reply, Naruto suddenly jumped. All right. It was then that he realized what he was doing. Sorry about that. I just got a little carried away. He finished with a chuckle and sat back down. Hinata, still a nice shade of red, shook her head. It's okay. Smiling, Naruto handed her back her bento and Head picked up his bag of nuts. He happily began eating again as Hinata took a few breaths to calm down before doing the same. As the third bite entered her mouth, she froze. It instantly hit her. She had just shared an indirect kiss with a boy sitting next to her. 3 times. It was in that moment of realization that her overactive imagination kicked in and gave her a very vivid picture of Naruto doing his puppy dog face and then kissing her. Unable to handle the sudden 1-2 punch, her face promptly went into nuclear meltdown and she passed out. Naruto noticed instantly and put a hand to her head. She's burning up. A fever. He was about to go get help when he noticed the heat start to leave her. The fever's going down. Did she just get faint and pass out? Well, she seems okay and certainly looks peaceful enough, Naruto thought with a sigh of relief. The boy made sure Hinata was comfortable leaning against the tree before he cleaned up the dropped bento and packed it back up for later. Deciding he'd let her rest for the rest of lunch, Naruto leaned against the tree next to her and started reading his book. As he read, Hinata slipped from her position and ended up sleeping on his shoulder. Initially, he froze up, not sure what was happening. But one look at the peaceful Hyuga put him at ease. Stopping himself from shrugging at the situation, Naruto went back to reading. The bell signaling it was the end of lunch woke Hinata. Sitting up straight, she yawned loudly while rubbing her eyes. Sleep well, she heard a bemused voice say. Turning, she saw a grinning Naruto next to her. She then eeped and blushed in embarrassment as she remembered what happened. She was about to say something when she noticed the wet spot on his shoulder. Eyes widening and blushing even harder, she stuttered out in shock. WWSID drooling. Yep, Naruto said with a mischievous grin. Hinata felt another feint come on when Naruto laughed lightly. No worries, your secret is safe with me. We better get back to class though. I don't want to be late and have to experience another one of Irika-sensei's pieces of death chalk. He finished with a shudder. Hinata nodded weakly, and the two of them made their way downstairs. The rest of class was just like the first part of it, boring as hell. At least that is what Naruto thought as he sat through it. Once again, Naruto was about to jump for joy when Irika announced class was over. Smiling widely, he collected his book and was about to jump out the window in search of Kurenai when suddenly Hinata, who had walked over to him, spoke. "In Naruto?" Hmm. He grunted out and turned around. "Oh hey, what's up?" "Ah, well, if it's in not TT too much trouble. Kurenai sensei said she wanted to T-talk to you." Hinata replied. "Yeah, I want to talk to her too. I was just about to go find her. Actually," Naruto said. Well, she comes A after S school to P pick me up SS. Well, you can J just talk to her ditch then, if you want." Hinata said. "Oh, that'll make things easy. Thanks, Hinata-chan." Naruto replied with a smile. The added suffix caused the girl to blush. "Si-chan?" she asked out loud without realizing. Noticing her look of confusion and taking her blush for anger, Naruto quickly backtracked. "Ah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to just assume we were friends. I'll just call you Hinata. I'm sorry." Hinata just shook her head. I don't mind. IWW was just surprised. I don't have many friends S, so it W was unexpected. B, but IW would be happy T to be your FR friend." Then she added hesitantly, "And in Naruto Kaken." The smile the girl got nearly made her pass out, as it was one of Naruto's rare, true smiles. "And I'm happy to be yours, Hinata-chan. Shall we go meet Kurenai-sensei?" The girl replied happily with a nod before blinking in confusion. Wait. And Naruto-kun, why do you see call her sensei?" "Crap. I can't tell her it's because of the QB. I'll lose my first friend just as I got her. I better play this cool. Oh, that's cause she agreed to train me, as thanks for rescuing you. Aeon, cause I begged her really hard to." Naruto laughed lightly while looking a little embarrassed and rubbing the back of his head. "I'll have to tell Kurenai-sensei later so our story matches. I hope Hinata-chan doesn't bring it up before I can. I mean, she was just so cool taking out those missing nin, and she did it so easily too. I couldn't help but to ask her to train me." Naruto finished and looked to Hinata. "Oh, well, I'm glad she agreed to train YU." Hinata said. "Yeah, me too. Today will be our first session. I can't wait," Naruto said while smiling enthusiastically. Once the two got to the school entrance, they found Kurenai waiting for them. "Hello, Kurenai-sensei." "Hey, sensei." The two children greeted her. "Hello to you too as well. I'm glad to see you getting along. Did Hinata give you my message, Naruto?" Kurenai replied. Naruto nodded. "Yep. No worries, sensei. I'll keep quiet." "Good. That's one less thing to worry about then. Ready to go home, Hinata?" the older woman asked. Getting a nod for the shy girl, she turned to Naruto. "We can start your training after we drop her off if you're ready for it." "I'm ready when you are, sensei," he replied with a grin. Kurenai nodded and was about to head in the direction of the Hyuga compound when Hinata's sudden voice stopped her. Father." The other two in the group turned to look at the head of the Hyuga clan approach them. Once he was close enough, Kurenai spoke. "Good day, Hayashi. What a pleasant surprise. What brings you out this way today?" she asked in a very amiable voice. "I was in the vicinity and decided to pick up my daughter myself today, since she has an evaluation by the council." Hayashi replied coldly before looking at Hinata. "Hinata, come," he commanded as if she were no more than a dog. She replied meekly before hurrying over to his already retreating side. Once they were far enough away, Naruto said with a grimace, "Damn, I had heard he was bad, but that just made him look worse. Unfortunately, too many rumors about him are true. What's even more unfortunate is the fact that there is nothing we can do about it." Kurenai finished with a sigh. "Anyway, let's go so we can get started, shall we?" This brought a small smile to the blonde's face. With a nod, the two headed to one of the many training grounds around Konoha. At one of the many training grounds of Konoha. "Okay, to begin, I want you to tell me all the justices you know, which ones the QB has taught you, and any other skills you have." Kurenai started off. "Well, the only jutsus I know are the hinge, substitution, and shadow clone," Naruto replied. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. "You know how to make shadow clones, but not regular ones?" Naruto nodded. Yeah, I was confused about that too for a while. But I've been studying in the library and was able to find out why. Simply, I have way too much chakra and not enough control over it to create one. When I do try the jutsu, I can't limit the amount I put in enough to be able to control the clone effectively. So they just end up looking like zombies. Naruto finished. You have so much chakra that your control is shot? I find that hard to believe. You're not even a genin yet. Your pool should be small. Kurenai countered. After reading up, I got curious about that too. My best guess is it's because of my tenet and my heritage, but you don't need to know that. Naruto replied. Ah, that does make sense. Well, how big are your reserves? I saw you make 2 clones yesterday. How many can you safely make without feeling strained? Kurenai questioned. Um. Naruto stalled as he assumed his thinking pose. I never really push myself so far as to feel a strain. I can make 500 easily enough, though. Kurenai balked. Kid, boasting like that will get you nowhere dash. Naruto cut her off. I'm not boasting. With your permission, I'll show you sensei. Seeing his calm, assured face, Kurenai stopped from outright denying him. 500 clones? Who did the kid think he was? He would die well before that. But his face of calm determination, of 100% confidence, made her think twice. Before she even knew what she was saying, she smirked. All right, kid, let's see what you got. Several hours later, after Kurenai finally got over her initial shock of the size of Naruto's chakra reserves, which took a good 10 minutes of staring in shock at well over 500 clones, and moving to a more secluded location and finally masking their presence with some jinjutsu, she got around to getting a full scope of the blonde's ability. In short, the Jounin had her work cut out for her. She now knew why he had failed so much already. He had next to no taijutsu skills to speak of at all. His chakra control was absolutely abysmal to her, even with his huge reserves, and he had next to no knowledge of jinjutsu whatsoever. The only thing that was of any worth for the kid was his ingenuity and battle tactics. Sure, they could use work like everything else, but at least they were up to snuff for a soon-to-be genin. Even with all his failings, she couldn't help but be impressed with the kid. He had gone from virtually no chakra control to some in a matter of months, according to him. Still, it's nowhere near where I want someone I'm training to be. Now that I've seen him in action, I know how to direct him. Good thing this trick of his for training with shadow clones is so handy. Kurenai thought to herself as she watched the hundreds of Narutos do horizontal handstands from trees while balancing several leaves from the heels of their feet. The entire time, concentration and determination painted on their faces. Most people didn't have his kind of reserves, so they didn't have to come up with ways to refine them. Luckily for Kurenai, she had only modest reserves at best, even for a jounin, and as such learned long ago to make each ounce of the stuff count. In the process of refining her control, she had developed quite a few interesting ways of reaching said control, and she was going to use every one on the unknowing blonde. Kurenai was shaken from her musings when the real Naruto suddenly skid to a stop next to her, breathing heavily. While his clones had worked on fixing his control, she had set the kid to improving his physique. Though it had been fine for his current level, or if she was honest with herself, somewhat better in terms of speed despite his diet, she now knew what the kid had to deal with and wanted him better prepared. Go through the cool-down stretches I showed you, then we'll call it a day. Kurenai said to Naruto, who nodded and began wordlessly going through the form she had shown him earlier. The sun was almost completely set, and she wanted to take the kid shopping for groceries before it got too late. During the hours of confirming her fears of Naruto's inadequate training, she had also gathered intel on his day-to-day life. How he lived, what he ate, how he had trained before, and so on. Each unsettling discovery had kindled Kurenai's inner rage more and more. She was now determined to see Naruto fully taken care of, either by herself, via a friend, or by himself. She would teach him what he needed to survive. Honestly, the Jounin was surprised he had lasted this long. She knew he had a lot of buried emotional trauma, both from the way the village had treated him and from having the QB sealed in him, which she had found out tormented him just as much as the villagers did and only trained him when he could broker a deal from a beast. Phew, Man, that was tough. I'm beat. And starving. Think we could hit someplace on the way home, sensei? Please. Naruto asked as he walked over to her after finishing his stretching. Kurenai couldn't help but chuckle at the kid. It seems he unconsciously pulled the most adorable puppy dog face whenever he asked someone for something he really wanted. I suppose we can, since you worked so hard today. What you in the mood for? Naruto grinned before replying, Ichiraku's, of course. Kurenai mulled over the idea for a minute before nodding. All right, but don't think this will be an everyday thing. I want you eating a healthier diet, and ramen isn't good for you. Naruto frowned and looked down. Yeah, I know. But at least can I have some ever now and then? He asked hopefully, once more going into begging puppy dog mode, causing Kurenai to chuckle again. Maybe as rewards for doing good in your training. But you'll have to earn it. Deal. The blonde instantly replied, shaking her head at the kid's enthusiasm for both training and ramen. She turned to leave and then thought of something. Hey kid, make a clone with a decent amount of chakra to him, one to last as long as the rest of them. She finished by jabbing a thumb at the training clones. Sure thing, sensei, he said before making the required hand sign and creating a clone. What do you need, sensei? The clone asked. Kurenai had pulled out a blank paper tag while he had done that and had begun writing on it. I'm going to tie my Jinjutsus to this tag. It'll warn you by the sound of a bell if anyone crosses the ones I have set up, so you'll know to dispel. I'll also have it sound like a nightingale if the chakra I put into it runs out, so you know to dispel more gradually. She explained as she wrote. Once she finished, she handed the tag to the clone who nodded and jumped up into a tree. It had been decided on by the two of them that they should keep Naruto's skills hidden as best as they could for now, under the simple rule that moths are always drawn to a flame. And with Naruto already having so many problems as he was, sticking out would only cause more. Several months later, without question, the last few months had been the best in Naruto's life. To his eyes, things were finally turning around. He had made friends. He had a sensei that was awesome and had helped him get strong. And the best part, he was now a genin, even if he had graduated last in his class due to keeping up with his last place facade. Life to him was good. The last few months had gone pretty much the same way. Going to school, which pretty much meant hanging with Hinata. After school, he would either walk Hinata home with Kurenai sensei, or the two of them would teach Naruto things he needed to know in life. Everything from cooking or cleaning or good hygiene to how to mend or fix things properly, and even decent survival skills, though Kurenai taught that to both Naruto and Hinata. It was after Naruto and Kurenai dropped off Hinata that they would go out and train. The main thing Kurenai wanted for Naruto was what Naruto wanted for himself in the first place: impeccable chakra control. And he had come a long way, a very long way, in the short time he had been training under Kurenai, thanks to shadow clones. While he still didn't have perfect control like Kurenai did, his control was amazingly good for the size of his reserves. He could now easily perform the regular clone with only a little effort, though it was much easier to perform the jutsu in bulk, as he had shown with a smirk at the Academy's final exam yesterday. Another good thing about control is less waste of chakra, which leads to more gain. Thanks to that, even though his reserves really hadn't grown much in the last few months, he could now make well over 1,000 clones, have each and every one of those clones usable in a fight, and still have enough for himself to fight, which in and of itself was an amazing ability. In addition to finally learning the last of the Academy 3, Kurenai had introduced the blonde into the lovely world of Jinjutsu. All she had to say was that Jinjutsu was basically only limited by your imagination, and Naruto was ready to learn. Sure, it wasn't physically affecting his surroundings, but the possibilities to screw with people in and out of combat were practically endless, and that greatly appealed to Naruto. Though if he was being honest with himself, Jinjutsu was hard. He was glad for all his chakra control training when he finally started training in the art of Jinjutsu, because it was just that, an art. The smallest mistake while molding your chakra while creating the illusion, or while holding the illusion and your enemy could detect it, or it could change in a very unrealistic way, or just fade out of view entirely. Also, the smarter your enemy was, the more complicated you had to make your illusion to fool them. Still, while Naruto was no expert, he could create passable Jinjutsu, which to him was a big accomplishment. He had even impressed Kurenai, as she had explained that most don't use Jinjutsu because it normally requires a higher intelligence and implicit attention to detail. Other than Jinjutsu, Naruto had been working on his taijutsu. Kurenai had taught him the academy's basic style of taijutsu, as well as how to attack someone by surprise while hidden in Jinjutsu. And while Naruto was grateful to have an actual fighting style and enjoyed using Jinjutsu to launch sneak attacks as Sensei taught him, he never felt that the style was really him. So Naruto took it upon himself to find the style that was right for him. He started in the library and, after finding several styles that seemed promising, decided to give them a try. He immediately brought up his intentions to Kurenai. The Jounin had been able to tell he needed to adopt a different style or create his own when teaching him the academy taijutsu forms. So when the blonde brought several taijutsu scrolls to her asking for help in learning them, she encouraged him and did what she could to help. And while he never stuck with one style, Naruto did take several forms from each of the styles he tried, meshing them into his own unique fighting method. He may not have his style completely down yet, but at least he had all the forms memorized from each of the scrolls he had taken them from, and was working on making them muscle memory. Naruto smirked. There had been other things he had been learning. He had promised to tell Kurenai about the techniques the Kyuubi taught him, not things he learned from his dreams. Granted, he really hadn't been able to learn much with what little time he had himself, but there were some advantages to being an insomniac. He had really only learned one jutsu fully, the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, but had started learning others. One in particular, one of the more constant things in his dreams, was the Rasengan, a move his father had created. Thinking about the move caused Naruto to frown. The move was a constant frustration to the blonde. Even with having his leftover clones train the move after he and Kurenai left every day and training the move on his own at night, he had only gotten the second stage of the move down. He was still having trouble with the third and final step. Shaking his head, he stopped thinking about the jutsu. It was only a matter of time after all. Even though he had stopped thinking about the Rasengan, thinking about one frustrating subject had led to another, Hinata. At first, their friendship had been an uneasy one, both wary of the other. But over the months, and with a little help from Kurenai, they had become great friends. When you grow familiar with someone, though, you notice things about them that you didn't see at first. The same was true for Naruto. He now knew a lot about his friend, her likes and dislikes, her aspirations in life, her personality, even how she'd react to certain things. But that knowledge also meant that he had eventually found out that Hinata's family beat her on a regular basis. The first time he had noticed something wrong was when one day Hinata came to school. She was more withdrawn than usual, even for her. She barely spoke more than a word at a time, if that, and cringed if someone so much as looked at her. At first, Naruto thought that she may have been sick, or perhaps it was just that time of the month, knowledge he had unfortunately learned about thanks to the Kyuubi's tormenting. Hinata seemed to recover in a few days, so he wasn't worried. When the same thing happened about a month later, he worked up the courage to ask her about it, only to be met with her freezing up and finally telling him not to ask about it. The third time around, less than 2 weeks after the second time, Naruto knew something was up. When he brought it up this time when they were having lunch on the roof, as was their custom, a bit more forceful than he maybe should have, he caused the poor girl to freak out and try to run. All she managed to do, however, was trip, causing her hoodie to rip on a root of the tree along the arm up to her elbow, revealing a very bruised arm. Seeing her hoodie rip, then seeing Naruto see her arm, had caused the girl to break down right there. Naruto, after getting over his initial shock, did the sensible thing and held the girl till she stopped crying, the whole time doing his best to not go enraged at what he had seen. When she had finally stopped crying, she told Naruto all about her family life, how she was treated day after day, how if she failed to meet expectations, which was practically always, they would train her till all her tenketsu were closed, then beat her further for being weak. Often it was her father that did the beating, but several of the elders on the clan, her cousin Niji, and even her younger sister all took part sometimes. Her only reprieve from her hell of a home life was when she was able to go to school, when she could stay out a little while and hang with Naruto and Kurenai. Suffice it to say, that day Naruto had skipped the rest of class with Hinata to find Kurenai. Kurenai had, of course, been furious and had brought the matter up to the Hokage, only to be shut down under the pretense that it was clan business and that they had no authority to interfere, and if they did, that they could be punished to the full extent of the clan's own justice system. Ultimately, there was nothing they could do, and it frustrated them to no end. At the very least, Hinata now had people she could talk to about her life at home. And whenever she did get beaten, which was more often than any of them would like, Kurenai would bandage her up and apply salves to help speed her healing. She also taught Naruto and Hinata how to as well. Naruto grimaced. It had gotten to the point to where Naruto contemplated destroying the Hyuga compound on a daily basis, even without the Kyuubi's prodding, though she certainly did. Luckily, Naruto was in more control of himself due to his chakra control training. If you are to control your chakra completely, you must first be able to control yourself. Your emotions will hinder your focus, thus your control, which will lead to ruining whatever jutsu you're creating. Control your emotions, and you are one step closer to controlling your chakra, was one of Kurenai Sensei's first lessons. Sighing, Naruto glanced at his clock. It was almost time to leave for school to finally find out what his team will be. Letting several chopsticks clatter to the ground, he eased his feet to the ground and went to gather his things. He had been doing one of the advanced chakra control exercises that Kurenai had shown him. It basically involved him keeping himself at a 45-degree angle up in the air from a chair back by one finger, which would cause it to tip from his weight under normal conditions. So part of the exercise was to send his chakra through the chair to keep it cemented to the ground. To make the exercise even more intense, he had his legs and one remaining arm spread out, and on the tip of each finger and toe, he held a chopstick in place like he would a leaf at its thinnest point. Naruto shook his head at his sensei's promise for even more challenging exercises soon to come. Gathering his things, which ended in him securing his headband to his head tightly, he made his way over to the spot where he normally met up with Kurenai and Hinata. Though now it would just be Hinata, as since she was a genin, she was considered strong enough to look after herself, at least in the village. Getting there early as usual, Naruto leaned against a building and stared at a leaf he had grabbed on the way. Between his dreams and studying in the library, Naruto had learned quite a bit about nature chakra manipulation. He didn't have the means to get a hold of chakra paper to find out what his affinity was, and Kurenai had said that he'd have to wait till he was a genin at the very least before she would be willing to train him in nature manipulation. Well, that time had finally come. While he may not have a say in which element he got, he had been thinking about the pros and cons of each element, and had narrowed down which two he'd hope for the most, fire or earth. Fire would help fill holes in his fighting style, giving him mid to long-range attacks. Earth, however, would fortify his style more, adding to his defensive abilities as well as his general overall screwing with your enemy with annoyances or otherwise theme. Still, he was determined to make any element work to his advantage. Naruto waited there, contemplating different things he could do with different elements till Hinata showed up, also sporting her newly acquired headband. "Morning, Hinata-chan. How are you today?" "Morning, Naruto-kun. I'm great." Hinata finished with a smile. Naruto responded with one of his own. "Ready to see who we get?" "Sure," she replied as they started walking towards the academy. Naruto noticed that she was still smiling as they walked and smiled in turn. He had an idea why she was happy, but wanted to make sure. "I take it your father took the news of you becoming a genin well enough?" "Why, you could say that," Hinata replied. "It went just as we thought it would. In fact, it went even better." "Oh, how so?" Naruto asked, surprised. "I think he might completely ignore me now." He said he was giving the position of heiress of the clan officially to Hanabi. So he'll have to train her now. She finished with a smile once more. Naruto knew that basically meant less, if any, training sessions for Hinata, which would be less sessions to fail at and thus get beaten for. A reason to be happy indeed. The pair walked in a happy silence all the way to the academy. Sitting together at the back of the class, they waited for all the other students for show up, as well as Irika-sensei. Once everyone was there, Irika addressed the class. I know you all are anxious to meet your Jounin instructors, so I'll keep this short. I want to start off. Come on, Irika-sensei. You don't say you're going to keep things short, then say the opening lines of a speech. Oh well, I can tell how proud he is of everyone. I just hope his speech isn't too long. That me and Hinata-chan are on the same squad together. It'd be nice if Kurinai-sensei was our instructor, but I'd settle for just Hinata-chan. Thinking of the Hyuga made him look at the girl. As he did, he had to suppress a chuckle. She seemed to be beaming at Irika's praise. Well, she deserves it. She's come a long way. She hardly stutters around me anymore, and from the few times she was able to train some with me and Kurinai-sensei, I know she's strong. She just needs more confidence, and she'd easily be able to take Sasuke. Thinking of the Uchiha made Naruto glance over at the kid, which made him grimace. Naruto had to give it to him. He had been through some messed up crap, just like he had, and had worked his butt off to become best in the class. But that didn't mean the bastard didn't have a huge ego and a stick up his ass, as well as a sense of entitlement, because he was an Uchiha, and that he was overrated. Whatever. I doubt I'll be stuck in his squad. After today, I don't have to worry about seeing his sorry, but every day. That's another good thing about graduating. Naruto thought happily. All right, now I'll announce the teams. Irika said, starting with team. Finally, please let me be with Hinata-chan. Please let me be with Hinata-chan. Please let me be with Hinata-chan. Naruto inwardly chanted as Irika listed off the teams. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. Yes. Sakura cheered loudly. No. Ino yelled at the same time. And Naruto Uzumaki. At the mention of his name on a team with neither Hinata or Kurinai, Naruto groaned loudly, finishing the sound with letting his head hit his desk with a loud thump. Damn it. Naruto hadn't let himself see the obvious, but in a lot of his dreams the team he was on was the normal outcome. What? Irika-sensei, why is that loser Naruto on a team with Sasuke? Sakura complained. Because this way your team is perfectly balanced. Sasuke was the first in the class and Naruto was last. Your Jounin instructor is Kakashi Hitaki. At the mention of Kakashi, Naruto started banging his head against his desk repeatedly. So, of a bitch. So, of a bitch. So, Naruto constantly repeated in his head, punctuating each bang with a word. Team 8 will be Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, and Hinata Hyuga. Irika continued. At the sound of Hinata's name, Naruto stopped trying to cause bodily harm to his person and listened. Your instructor will be Kurinai Yuhei. Team 9 will. Naruto looked over to Hinata to see her looking down. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I wish you could be on my team. Hinata said sadly. Hey, don't worry about it. At least one of us got Kurinai-sensei. Naruto said back, smiling. And you definitely need her more than I do. But, Hinata said, Naruto's attempt to cheer her up failing. Naruto shook his head slightly, then leaned in close to her ear and whispered, I'll let you in on a secret. Hinata went still. I've heard some things about my instructor. He's kind of lazy, so I'll have plenty of time to myself to train. I'm sure Kurinai-sensei won't mind if I come train with you guys then. So don't worry, we'll see each other all the time. He paused for a second, then added, Besides, now that your prick of a father has finally released you from his clutches, you can do what you want. So whenever you have free time, you're more than welcome to come over to my place and hang. He leaned back and smiled. Hinata had perked up quite a bit at the news. Why you? You really mean it? She whispered back. Of course. Any time is fine, even if it's the middle of the night. You know I'll probably be awake anyway. Naruto affirmed with a soft laugh. Hinata smiled brightly in return. Let me just say one more thing before releasing you to your instructors. I am so very proud of you, and I know you will all become excellent shinobi. Irika finished, after which the instructors already there began collecting their teams. Kurinai was one of them. You go on ahead. I'll try to come hang out later, okay? Naruto told Hinata. Hesitating just a second, Hinata left with a simple, "See you later," and went to her team. After they had left, Naruto sighed. This is going to suck. Hanging his head in defeat, he then blinked in surprise. The grain of the wood of his desk had changed into letters, forming a message. "Sorry, kid. I tried getting both of you in my squad, but could only get permission for one of you two. Ishuzi neta. We both know why. If Kakashi is as lazy as people say he is, and he leaves you to your own devices enough, you're always welcome to train with my team. You're a Jinin now, kid. So no need to keep up that idiot last in the class act. Wait, I forgot being an idiot wasn't an act. K. Naruto smiled at the message, then wordlessly dispelled the Jinjutsu. Well, maybe this wouldn't be the worst thing ever. 3 hours later. It had been a good while since the last team had left with their new sensei. Naruto had taken to reading a book he had luckily grabbed with an afterthought that morning. Though with how Sakura kept going on about everything and nothing in that loud, annoying voice of hers, Naruto was having a hard time focusing. He had to give it to Sasuke. The guy ignored her like a champ. Sighing, he closed his book and put it away. He was bored, and it had been too long since he had pulled a decent prank. Walking down to the blackboard, he found a most used eraser and then stuck in the top of the door so that whoever opened it would be met with an eraser to the head. "Hey, idiot, what are you doing?" Sakura asked accusingly. "Kakashi has left us waiting here for 3 hours. He deserves a little punishment. Besides, he's an elite jounin. If he falls for a simple trick like this, then it's his own fault," Naruto said with irritation. "Whatever, I'm not part of that," Sakura said, and then turned to begin talking to Sasuke again. Naruto, at the same time, began walking back to his seat. It was then he heard the sliding of a door and a quiet pop of the eraser hitting Kakashi's head. Turning, he saw the aftermath of his work and grinned. "Well, what do you know? It actually worked. I am Sora-sensei. I tried to stop him, but..." Sakura explained weakly. Sasuke just looked at Kakashi skeptically. How do I say this? My first impression of you guys is, I don't like you," Kakashi said. "Well, I don't like you, so I guess we're even. Now, can we get our introductions and whatever else over with already? I have better stuff to do than sit around for 3 hours waiting on a sensei," Naruto said, coding the last part heavily with frustration and sarcasm. Kakashi looked at Naruto, then at Sakura and Sasuke, and shrugged. "Meet on the roof in 5 minutes," he said, and then shoo-shined away. "Great. Now look what you did, idiot. Our sensei hates us now," Sakura yelled angrily at Naruto. Naruto completely ignored her, real petty Kakashi, making us wait 5 minutes all because of a prank. Naruto muttered as he walked over to the window. "Naruto, don't you dare ignore me," Sakura yelled. Naruto did just that. "Come on, guys. We'll be here all night if we don't get this over with." And with that, he left the two of them, looks of shock on their faces as Naruto stepped out onto the side of the building and walked up to the roof. He took it as a small victory when Kakashi's eye widened in surprise as Naruto stepped up on the top of the roof from its side. The two of them waited in silence for Sasuke, and Sakura showed up. Before the other two could say anything, Kakashi spoke up. "Good. Now that we're all here, let's introduce ourselves." After a small stretch of silence where no one stepped up to go first, Kakashi resumed. "I guess I'll go first. My name is Kakashi Hitaki. I have no desire to tell you my likes or dislikes. Dreams for the future? Well, I have lots of hobbies. So all we learned is his name?" Sakura whispered to Naruto and Sasuke. "All right, now all of you." From the left, Kakashi said, "Oh, I'm Zakua Haruno. The thing I like is..." She glanced at Sasuke. "Well, the person I like is..." She looked at Sasuke again and giggled. Should I say my dream for the future?" After a short pause, she squealed, "Oh my." Then after another pause, "The thing I dislike is Naruto. This is me giving no fucks." Naruto thought to himself. As for hobbies, she once more looked at Sasuke and giggled. Next, Kakashi said to stop her from going on. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. There are a ton of things I dislike, and I don't really like anything. And I don't want to use the term dream, but I have an ambition. The resurrection of my clan, and to kill a certain man. So cool, Sakura said in a daze. Whatever. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. These two already know my likes and dislikes, Naruto said while motioning to his two teammates, and I know you could care less about them. Though in case you haven't heard, my dream is to become Hokage. And make no mistake, I will. Naruto declared with a confident grin. Yeah, right. As if an idiot like you could ever become Hokage. Sakura yelled. Well, that's enough of that. We'll start our duties tomorrow. Kakashi said, we'll start by doing something with just for 4 of us. Survival training. Why is our first duty training? We did enough training in the academy. Sakura interjected. Well, in all actuality, it isn't really training, but more of a test. One that has a failure rate of over 66%. I'd guess that of the 27 that graduated the academy, around only 9 will pass this test and become actual genin. Kakashi finished with an evil chuckle. Is that supposed to scare me? Even if there was a 99% failure rate, I wouldn't be afraid. I'm going to pass. Believe it. Naruto replied calmly. Kakashi, I smiled. I certainly hope so. Anyway, show up at training field 37 at 8 o'clock sharp tomorrow. Bring everything you think you'll need to pass. Oh, and skip breakfast or you'll throw up. After a pause for dramatic effect, Kakashi resumed. Remember, 8 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. He then let via Shushin. Even with the 3 hours of wasted time, there's still plenty of sun left in the day. Naruto thought as he looked up at the position of the sun. I would love to go train, but Kurenai-sensei is probably busy actually doing her job, unlike stupid Kakashi. So since I can't do that, I guess I'll go read up at the library, Naruto thought as he turned to head for the library. And after, some Ichiraka ramen. I haven't been by there in a few days. Just wait a few more hours, ramen. I will be there to eat you soon. Naruto was just about to start leaping across rooftops when he was suddenly stopped. Hey, Naruto, Sasuke said. Naruto asked while turning around. What do you want, Uchiha? Naruto, don't be so rude to Sasuke. Sakura yelled, though both ignored her. How were you able to walk up the side of the building like it was nothing? They didn't teach us to do that in the academy. Sasuke demanded angrily. Oh yeah, how were you able to do that? Sakura asked as well, her curiosity piqued. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I thought I was just an idiot. Isn't that what you call me? Practically every time you see fit to speak with me, you're the one with book smarts. You tell me how an idiot, such as myself, could explain something I do without thinking. Sakura sputtered for a reply before Naruto spoke back up, looking at Sasuke. And I'm sorry, Sasuke. I figured the class genius already knew how to do something so simple and didn't need the last in the class's help. Leaving Sakura still sputtering and Sasuke glaring at him, Naruto leapt from the rooftop. It only took him a few seconds to realize that Sasuke had chased after him in anger, which meant Sakura wouldn't be far behind. Losing them was a piece of cake. All it took was jumping down into a busy street and using a hinge, then creating a shadow clone and sent him running in a different direction. After watching Sasuke and Sakura run after his clone, Naruto smiled. All too easy, Naruto thought, then headed for the library. Later that night, Naruto stood in the middle of a forest covered in a deep fog. Taking in a deep breath, Naruto realized he was dreaming. It didn't happen often, but every now and then he would realize he was dreaming and be able to control his movements in the dream. The night air seemed cold and crisp to him as he started walking forward. He couldn't say why he did it. He just knew he had to go this way. As he walked, he noticed a red glow in the distance, and the smell of smoke became stronger. His dread grew as he continued ever forward. He had the power to stop, but he also knew this was nothing but a dream and that he could wake from it whenever he needed to. Walking ever forward, the fog turned to smoke. It became hard to breathe, hard to see, even hard to think. His dread grew, yet he walked forward. For some reason, He felt as if there was something he had to see. Walking forward, squinting his eyes, trying to see, but failing to do so more than a foot from his face, Naruto continued on. He did so till he tripped over something. Pulling himself up, he looked at what he had tripped over and froze. He hadn't tripped over something, but someone. He froze at what he saw. There on the ground, dull, lifeless eyes staring at the sky, lay Hinata. There were lines of blood coming from her mouth, eyes, and ears as if it had been forced out from the inside. This is just a dream. Just a Okami. Hinata. Why her? Naruto said shakily as he got to his feet. The QB had brought nightmares where Hinata had died before, but this felt so much worse, so much more real, that the sight had shaken Naruto. Feeling like he was on the verge of puking, he managed to turn his head away from her and back towards the glow in the distance. He still felt like he needed to see more. Even with the dead body of his one only true friend laying at his feet, he knew he had to continue on. Such was the need he felt. Walking on shaky feet and panting like he was out of breath, Naruto walked on. A strong gust of wind suddenly whipped up, blowing the smoke away. It revealed that Naruto was on the edge of a cliff overlooking Konoha. Or rather, what was left of Konoha. The village was ablaze. Craters and rents littered the earth and buildings, and the Hokage monument was completely gone like it had been vaporized. In short, the village was completely and utterly destroyed. The sound of someone whistling in appreciation to the left of him caused Naruto to whip his head in that direction. What he saw was the QB in human form looking at the village. What was odd was that the QB was see-through, like she wasn't tangible or actually there, and when she moved, she blurred excessively. Seeing her, he instantly knew that she wasn't part of his dream, but was the real thing. "What are you doing here?" Naruto asked, suddenly angry. "You're doing this, aren't you?" Turning to face him, the QB grinned mischievously. "Not that you'll believe me, but no. This isn't my doing. I'm only here because I felt an odd pull and decided to investigate." "Sure it isn't. As if I'm going to believe something as stupid as an odd pull," Naruto said, while making quotation marks with his hands. The QB shrugged. "I can't really explain it better than that because it's something I've never experienced before. Not while free, nor during my time as a prisoner with the last two who held me." She looked back at the village and smiled. "It's been a while since I've experienced something new," she said mostly to herself. Despite what he wanted to think, Naruto once more somehow knew that what she said was true. Not that he knew she wasn't lying, but that he knew that whatever was causing this dream, the QB wasn't it. "You see," the QB spoke up, breaking Naruto out of his thoughts. "That is what is to come." He saw that she was pointing towards the village. Following her finger, he found himself looking at a dark red in the middle of one of the bigger craters towards the center of the village. Suddenly, his vision leapt forward, as if his eyes suddenly got thousands of times better. What he saw made his blood run cold. It was him, cloaked in red chakra that gave him fox ears and 9 ever-swishing tails. The chakra gave him a long red coat, long red pants, and clawed chakra-covered feet. This him was yelling at the sky, tears flowing from his face freely. "That," the QB continued, causing Naruto to look back at her even though she stared at the other him, "is what you can gain. All you have to do is accept my power. Do so, and you could do anything, destroy anything, even." The QB cut off suddenly, eyes widening in shock. "That's not possible," she said. Naruto took a second look at the other him. It took him a minute to find what she did, but when he did, his eyes widened as well. The other Naruto's tear-stained eyes were sharp, not consumed by rage and bloodlust. There was definitely rage in them, but he, the other Naruto, had control. "I see," Naruto said, getting the QB's attention. He had had a moment of clarity. That other me. He saw Hinata die. He wanted revenge and reached to you to gain the power to do so. Only, he didn't ask you for it, but took it by force, all of it. He bested you, took complete control of your chakra, and with it destroyed Konoha. TCH, this is not but a dream. Do not even imagine for a second that you could do the same thing. The QB suddenly lashed out, anger in her eyes. I will consume you, and in doing so be free. That is what will happen, she declared as she glared at Naruto, who looked surprisingly calm. Remember that, Kit. She finished and tried to leave only to sport a shocked face once more. What? She then turned on Naruto. Why do you hold me here? Release me back to my dwelling. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I'm not. At least not consciously. You can't leave then. The QB knew when Naruto was lying, and now wasn't one of them. She answered through clenched teeth, I cannot. That's odd. I wonder if I can wake up. Naruto asked. As he tried to, he found himself easily shifting into consciousness. He stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the odd dream and all it entailed. Before he could think long, however, the QB spoke once more. That certainly was odd, she said. I could not leave till you did. Rather, I was forced to leave when you awoke. She went quiet for a long moment before she finally asked, Do you have any idea what that was? Despite the shakiness he still felt from seeing him nodded dead in that dream, he couldn't help but smirk. What's this? The great nine-tailed demon fox asking a 13-year-old mortal if he has any idea what happened. How long have you lived again? Cut the crap, Kit, and answer my question. As if I have any obligation to tell you shit. You torment me constantly, give me nightmares, constantly try to make me break. You tell me, QB, why should I tell you, Jack? Naruto inwardly ranted. After a moment of silence, she replied, You tell me what you know, be it small or seemingly insignificant, and I will grant you a favor. It has its limits. I will not give you anything you ask, but you would do well to have me. Own you one, I suspect. The QB finished in a very uncharacteristic, businesslike manner. Naruto thought it over before replying, I'll tell you, but on two conditions. Naruto could almost feel her glare. Speak them. You will owe me a favor. But on top of that, you will stop giving me nightmares and visions of horrible things. I'm messed up enough on my own that my mind doesn't need you adding fuel to the fire. Naruto stated resolutely. You ask too much, as if I'd ever agree to such a thing. The QB shot back. Then you get nothing. Naruto thought simply, then waited. He knew she was curious and would eventually bite. It seemed like an hour passed before she finally replied. Kit, what? I will agree to your conditions if I am allowed to add one of my own. And what kind of extra thing could you ask of me that you know I won't say no to? If I am to stop tormenting you in the form of nightmares and visions, I will lose one of my few forms of entertainment. So my second condition is simple. 5 times a week you will come into your mindscape and entertain me. And before you shoot the condition down, no, I do not mean in that way, though I would not say no to it either. Naruto didn't have to see her wink to know that was what she was doing. What I mean is that you come in here and play a few games with me. Perhaps shogi. Any form of simple game like that will do. Naruto debated this for a while. Would playing board games with the QB really be that bad? In exchange for less nightmares and torment? He knew from his previous deal that she could keep her word. Twice a week. 4 times. 3. And I will not budge on that. Take it or leave it, QB. Deal. Chapter 3. I don't want to be. Naruto stood up, stretched, and then glanced at the clock. Even though it was just after 8, he wasn't worried. He knew he probably had another 2 hours at least. More than enough time to eat a good breakfast and prepare for the test ahead. After preparing some toast and bacon, Naruto sat down to eat, all the while feeling perturbed. After his dream shaking him up, then striking his deal with the QB, and finally her practically dragging him into his mindscape to have him play shogi with her right after making the deal, Naruto just felt odd. Shaking his head, he tried to clear his head. He needed to focus if he wanted to come out on top during the test. Finishing his breakfast and getting dressed, Naruto gathered what he thought he would need, then left. He didn't hurry. In fact, he went at a slow, deliberate pace. Walking helped him think, and that was what he needed to do. Enjoying his walk, Naruto turned a corner and saw a familiar face. Smiling, he raised his hand up and called, "Hey, Hinata-chan," then nearly laughed when the girl practically jumped 3 feet in the air. Noticing who it was, the Hyuga hurried over. And Naruto-kun, what are you doing here? I thought your T-test was at 8. Hinata had accidentally run into Naruto at the library yesterday afternoon. Knowing Kakashi, I probably have till 10, if not later. You headed to your test? Naruto asked. Uh-huh. Hinata nodded. Well, I won't keep you. Just remember, teamwork is key. Naruto reminded her. Right. Gee, good luck, Naruto-kun. Hinata said. Good luck to you too, Hinata-chan. We'll go out to eat with our teams to celebrate after we both pass. Sound good? Sound good, she affirmed and then left, turning to Wave after a little while. Naruto had explained to her what to expect during the test yesterday when they met up at the library. He didn't feel bad about cheating via dream knowledge. A ninja did what he had to get the mission done. There was nothing pretty about the job. Naruto finally showed up at the training ground about 15 after 10, and just like he called it, Kakashi wasn't there. Naruto, about time you showed up. You're late, Sakura yelled at him. So, do you see Kakashi here yet? Naruto shot back, which caused her to shut up momentarily. He told us to be here at 8, and then made you two wait on purpose. I bet you guys even followed his instructions not to eat breakfast. This made both of them frown. And you guys call yourselves ninja? A ninja is supposed to see underneath all lies and deception. It's part of our job. Kakashi was giving you your first test yesterday, and you guys already failed. So what if you throw up? It's better than having nothing on your stomach for an intense survival training test. Now, just a minute, Naruto. What makes you think that dash Sakura started? You are correct. Kakashi cut in, appearing behind Sakura and Sasuke, causing them both to jump slightly. Though I'm surprised, after reading each of your files, I had suspected Sasuke to figure it out, and maybe Sakura, but definitely not you, Naruto. Well, I aim to please. How was the road of life, by the way? I just found my way back from it myself. Naruto replied, causing Kakashi to chuckle. I'll have to tell you some other time. For now, we have a test to do. Kakashi said, then pulled out a clock with a timer. This is set for noon. He then pulled out 2 bells. Your task is to take these 2 bells from B before the timer goes off. The person who doesn't get a bell will get no lunch. In fact, I'll tie you to a stump and eat yours in front of you. Also, Kakashi paused as a more menacing aura surrounded him. The person who doesn't get a bell fails and gets sent back to the academy. He then returned to normal. Feel free to use anything you have on you against me. You'll have to come at me with the intent to kill if you want to win. But if we do that, we could seriously hurt you, Sakura complained. As if he's a jounin, Naruto replied. Oh, so you acknowledge me then? I think I may be starting to like you guys. Kakashi said, okay, let's get going. Ready? Wait a minute. Naruto cut in. If it's okay, can you explain something to me real quick? He asked while pulling out a copy of the Aika book Kakashi was reading the day before. See, there's something Tiffany does in Chapter 10 that I just don't understand, and it's been bugging me all night. I was hoping you could help cause I saw that you were reading this yesterday. Is this really the time for that, Naruto? Sakura asked angrily, knowing what the book was. Kakashi, however, I smiled. It'll only take a minute, Sakura, and there's always time for explanations, especially when concerning a subject as important as the Aika series. It's the 4th paragraph down, Naruto said while handing the book open to Kakashi. Kakashi took the book and began reading from where Naruto had indicated. He immediately knew something was up upon reading the first sentence. Isn't taking an enemy by surprise a rudimentary strategy for a ninja? Realizing there was a Jinjutsu on the book, Kakashi dispelled it with a quick Kai to reveal a paper bomb in the book already lit. Kakashi barely had time to enact a replacement with a nearby log before it exploded. That sneaky little... I hadn't even said go yet. He then looked to where the other 2 were to find them gone. Were they in on it too? No, I would have realized they were acting. Did Naruto get them away in time then? Naruto, what do you think you were doing? You could have killed Kakashi-sensei. Sakura yelled at Naruto from the spot he had gotten them to via some replacement with 2 of his clones. Trying to be a ninja. Just so you know, your yelling has alerted him to your position. I suggest you run. Fast. The Naruto clone that was with them said before dispelling. TCH. Sasuke exclaimed before hastily dodging to the right and running off. Sasuke, wait for me. Sakura called out before she felt a menacing presence behind her. The basics of a ninja are to hide yourself well. That includes your voice, Sakura. Kakashi said, disappointed. Sakura gasped for a second before she was suddenly replaced with another Naruto clone. You know what? I really like fireworks, was all he said before the paper bombs plastered all over him exploded. Kakashi once again had only a split second to replace himself with a log. Kakashi suddenly found himself in what he knew was a Jinjutsu. The forest around him was all wrong. Colors were out of place or inverted. Trees looked unrealistic or transparent. Rocks moved around. In short, it was the worst Jinjutsu Kakashi had ever seen. You did well with a small one. Guess you can't handle bigger ones yet. Kakashi thought before dispelling the jutsu, only to have everything change. Everything was still wrong, but everything had changed. Tree placement, rises in the earth, colors were more jarring and hindered depth perception, etc. Layered Jinjutsu? In such a way as to make it so I can't use my surrounds to my advantage, but Naruto can? You are proving to be more and more clever. Kakashi then dispelled the Jinjutsu again, only to find another waiting. After about the 20th time dispelling, Kakashi was impressed. It may be horrible Jinjutsu, but when there is so many it doesn't even matter. Just how many layers are there? How can he have so much chakra? Kakashi then had to dodge as several shuriken were thrown at him. As he did, Sasuke suddenly rushed him from behind, only to trigger a trap that tied him up with ninja wire and left him hanging by one foot. And that, Naruto said while walking out of the inside of the tree, is what you get for refusing to accept my help in getting the bells and trying to do it all on your own. Even I'm not stupid enough to think I can take a Jounin by myself. He then looked at Kakashi. You know, we really have our work cut out for us. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at him. He already knows the purpose of the test? Is this really the last in the class? Whatever. Kahi. Naruto continued as he released the Jinjutsu, returning the forest to normal. Once more onto the bridge and all that. He finished in a sigh, then replaced himself with a log. Kakashi then saw that Sasuke had been replaced with a grinning clone of Naruto's as well. It was then that he heard a sizzling noise from below his feet. Not again, he thought before once more replacing himself with a log. With Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. Okay, are you two ready to start working as a team? We don't have much time left before noon. Naruto asked the two that were glaring at him. In case you forgot, moron, there are only two bells. Why should all three of us work together when one will fail? Sasuke asked, anger seeping into his voice. Yeah, explained that Mr. Smarty Pants. Sakura agreed, though she was now keeping her voice in check. Because even with all three of us working together, getting even a single bell from him will be difficult. Besides, if the two of you are so worried about failing, then fine. You two can have the bells. Another year in the academy doesn't bother me. Besides, a ninja often has to put aside personal needs to complete a mission. This is no different. Now are you two ready to do this or not? Naruto asked, irritated. Even if on the off chance that Kakashi was serious, at the very least he'd get a different team next year. This one sucked. Naruto, saying they could have the bells, quieted the pair down. Finally, Sasuke nodded. All right, fine. We do it your way. If it fails, I can just fight him myself regardless. What an arrogant prick. At least he agreed. Naruto thought. Why yeah, I guess I'm in. Sakura chimed in. All right, then here's what we're going to do. 12:10 p.m. I hate this team, Naruto thought, not for the first time that day. After getting the other two to agree to work together, Naruto had put together a brilliant plan, only for the other two to screw it up. Sasuke had decided to do his own thing at the last minute, and Sakura, who Naruto tried to get to help him salvage his ruined plan, instead decided it was more important to cheer for Sasuke. The short of it was they ran out of time. I revised my previous statement. We don't have our work cut out for us. We've got to freaking write a whole new set of rules to make the three of us a team. Kakashi had determined Sasuke and Sakura were both to be tied up, which neither had been happy with. All right, go ahead and eat your lunch, Naruto. Sasuke, Sakura, yours are now mine. Kakashi said as he grabbed the two bentos each genin had brought and ate them in an instant, so not to reveal his face. As Naruto took out his lunch and began to eat, Kakashi resumed speaking. Well, there's no need for you guys to go back to the academy. Then all three of us? Sakura began to ask, hopeful. Kakashi, I smiled. Yup, all three of you should quit being ninja. Well, why? I mean, I know we couldn't get the bells, but why do we have to quit? Sakura asked. Because all of you are just punks who don't deserve to be called ninja. Kakashi seriously replied. At this, Sasuke grew angry and tried to break free of his bonds. Fight me again. I'll show you who the real ninja is. Sasuke challenged. Kakashi just spared him a glance. That's why you're a punk. No, don't insult my Sasuke-kun. Sakura cried out. Kakashi looked up at her with a glare. Are you guys underestimating ninjas? Huh? Why do you think you were divided into teams and are doing this training? Huh? What does that mean? Sakura asked stupidly. Basically, you guys are not understanding the answer to the test. Kakashi said. Answer? Sakura asked. Yes, the answer that helps you pass this test. Kakashi replied. So, when are you going to tell us? Sakura asked. Geez. Kakashi paused, then glared at Sakura once more. It's teamwork. The three of you working together may have gotten the bells. We tried that. Sakura spoke up, but it didn't do us any good. Did you? Did you actually work together? All I saw was a lot of ignoring Naruto, even when he was the only one who actually got the point behind the test. Sasuke, you decided to try and fight me head-on, even when Naruto had put together a good plan on getting the bells, completely ruining the plan. And you, Sakura, had a chance to salvage what was left of the plan with Naruto, but instead yelled at him when he suggested it, and then cheered for Sasuke. Kakashi explained. Well, what's the point? There are only two bells. Even if we got them, one of us would have failed. What teamwork? This test just makes us fight each other. Sakura yelled. Of course, this test is designed for us to fight each other. Naruto broke in. That's why I offered to be the one that failed so that we could possibly pass. But even that didn't work. Sakura, you completely ignored me and Sasuke. You just assumed Sakura and I would get in your way and try to do everything yourself. The duties of mission are done by the team. Of course, superior individual ability is important to a ninja, but what's even more important is teamwork. Naruto ranted. What Naruto said was correct. Individual play that disrupts the team can put your teammates in danger and even get you killed. For example, Kakashi then reappeared next to the tied-up Sakura with a kunai to her neck. Naruto, kill Sasuke, or Sakura dies. What? Sakura screamed loudly. You see, Kakashi said while walking away leisurely, if a hostage is taken, you'll have tough choices and then die. You will be risking your lives in these duties. Kakashi then began leaving the area. You guys, I'll give you one more chance. But after lunch, I'm going to make it tougher to get the bells. Naruto, you aren't allowed to give any of your lunch to those two, as punishment for not working as a team with you even after you offer to sacrifice yourself and fail. You give them food, and you will immediately fail. I'm the rules here, got it? No buetis. Naruto said angrily, as if I'd give these two idiots food after what they did. Hey, who are you calling an idiot, Naruto? Sakura yelled as Kakashi jumped away. Naruto ignored her and slowly counted to 60 as he ate sandwiches that he had brought, after which he took out two more and held one out to both Sasuke and Sakura. What are you doing, moron? Sensei said you can't give us any, otherwise you'd fail. Sakura said. Yeah, dope. What are you doing? Sasuke asked. Please, as if I'm not going to fail anyway. There are only two bells, remember? Besides, I don't sense Kakashi near, and if you two don't eat, then you're going to be even more useless than you were before lunch. So, what are you waiting for? Naruto reasoned. Sasuke was quiet a long moment before saying through grit teeth, thanks. Then taking the sandwich. Sakura soon followed suit with a quiet and angry thanks of her own. Shortly after the two finished their sandwiches and Naruto had just finished his fourth, Kakashi appeared out of nowhere looking as pissed as could be. "You guys!" he yelled as he charged. "Ah!" Sakura screamed. Sasuke didn't make a sound, but looked like he was about to piss himself. Naruto pulled out another sandwich and munched away at it, completely unafraid. "Pass." Kakashi finished with an eye smile after skidding to a stop right in front of them. "Pass? But why?" Sakura asked. "You guys are the first. Everyone else would just do what I told them. They were all morons. A ninja must see underneath the underneath. Those that break the rules and codes of ninja are trash. But you know what? Those that don't take care of their comrades are lower than trash." Kakashi then paused, looking them over, and once again I smiled. "That ends the test. All of you pass. Starting tomorrow, Team 7 will begin its duties." "Yeah, I did it. I'm a ninja." Sakura cheered happily. Sasuke smirked in triumph. "All right, let's go," Kakashi said. "Hell yeah," Naruto replied, following. "Hey, don't just leave us here," Sakura yelled. "Dobe, you better get back here," Sasuke yelled as well. As Kakashi and Naruto walked away with the other two, yelling constantly, Kakashi spoke up. "I'm curious, Naruto. How is it that you know a forbidden jutsu like the Shadow Clone Jutsu? It's funny what you learn from listening to the voices to your head." Naruto replied nonchalantly, "And before you freak, the old man knows. I've been training with Kurenai-sensei for most of my time since this year's academy started up to keep things under control." Kurenai had gone to the Hokage with what she was doing after about a decent amount of time had passed. She did so with the simple reasoning that no matter how hard they try to hide it, people would eventually notice what they were doing. And it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission. "Ah, that explains a lot. Still, I'm impressed you can make so many clones," Kakashi replied. "Yeah, we figure my larger than normal reserves are due to my tenant." Speaking of clones, Naruto then made one to go untie the other two. "I really don't look forward to working with those two." "When life gives you lemons," Kakashi said simply. "Screw that. I didn't ask for lemons. What am I supposed to do with these? Where's Life's manager? I demand he take them back." Life will rue the day it gave Naruto Uzumaki lemons. Doesn't it know who I am? I'm the man who's going to burn your house down. With the lemons, I'm going to train my ass off and create a jutsu that makes lemons combustible that burns your house down. Naruto ranted, getting a laugh out of Kakashi. "Well, at least I know I have one interesting student. I'll see you tomorrow," Kakashi said, and then shoe-shined away. Flashback. 4 times. 3. And I will not budge on that. Take it or leave it, QB. Deal. Now tell me what you know. Naruto paused for a second before answering. It wasn't a dream. What? What we saw. Even though we both know it was a dream, I wouldn't call it that. It felt too real. It was too real to be a dream. I think it was a vision of the future. Something that could happen. Naruto explained. Impossible. You will never be strong enough to take control of me and my chakra, especially in your current state. That you saw wasn't any older than you were, the QB said in denial. And yet, I know you saw the same thing I did when you looked at that other me. You saw the seal destroyed, yourself in chains, the other me's spirit holding you by the throat, and him commanding you to give up all of your chakra by force. The other me defeated you. And we both know why, I think. What? Because of the Hugo whelp. Ridiculous. The resulting rage from her death would only guarantee I take over, not the opposite. Except the opposite did happen. That other me used his rage to defeat you and then used you to destroy Konoha. All idle speculation based on what you think happened. None of dash the QB began, but was then cut off. It's not idle speculation. I know that's what happened. Naruto cut in. Kid, do not play with me. Just because you think it was a vision of the future doesn't dash, the QB began, but was once more cut off. You want to know what I knew about that dream? Well, I'm telling you. That, even though we saw it in dream form, was what happened. What's going to happen unless I change it. I've had enough dreams about other me's to know now that other worlds exist and I can somehow see them when I sleep. But that wasn't another world. That was ours. It isn't idle speculation or just a gist of a feeling that makes me say this. I just know, Naruto said resolutely. The QB paused for a moment before once again speaking. Interesting. You just know. Very interesting indeed. Now tell me, what are these other dreams you have about other yous? You mean you haven't noticed me taking notes about them, or, I don't know, learning jutsu from them? As if I have nothing better to do but devote all my time to watching every little thing you do every second of every day. Believe it or not, I do have other things to take up my time, even in here. The QB replied indignantly. Like what? Naruto asked. Sleeping, for one. I need my beauty sleep after all, and grooming myself takes quite a bit of time as well. Believe it or not. You gotta be kidding me. In flashback. In Naruto. Hinata's voice brought Naruto back from his sudden trip down memory lane. What is it, Hinata-chan? Kiba asked you a question, but you were zoned out and didn't answer. She replied. Naruto grinned and rubbed the back of his head. Sorry about that, Kiba. I got a little lost in thought there. What did you ask? I asked if being on a team with both Sasuke and Sakura is as annoying as it sounds. Kiba replied. Oh man, you have no idea. Sasuke acts just like he did at the academy, like he's better than everyone else and that he's got to stick up his ass. And Sakura just makes things worse with all her yelling and her Sasuke can do no wrong attitude. I wish I had ended up on you guys' team. Naruto complained. After passing the bell test, he had asked his two teammates if they wanted to go out to eat to celebrate. Sasuke had replied with as if I'd go out in public with a loser like you. And Sakura chased after him, asking him to go out with her. Giving up on his two teammates, Naruto had sought out Hinata and her team. They, of course, had passed with a little help from Hinata. Now, they were all at one of the few restaurants that would serve Naruto, a small cafe on the edge of the village. The four of them now sat at a booth awaiting their orders, Kiba and Shino on one side and Naruto and Hinata on the other. Hey man, you've got all my sympathy. I wouldn't want to be on your team for any reason. Kiba replied. I agree with my teammates' sentiment and also offer my most heartfelt sympathy towards your predicament. Shino said. Thanks guys. If I'm lucky, Kakashi will be as lazy as they say he is and will leave me to train on my own. I was hoping I could train with you guys if that turned out to be the case. That okay with you? Naruto asked Kiba and Shino. I have no problem with that suggestion. Indeed, it could be most beneficial to all. Shino said. Yeah, I've no problem with you training with us as long as Kurenai-sensei doesn't. By the way, why don't you call your instructor Sensei, Naruto? Kiba asked. Well, I mean, no disrespect to Kakashi, but I'm not going to call him Sensei till he actually teaches me something I don't know. Naruto replied. Well, how did your test go? I hear that it was thanks to you Hinata had a good idea what to do during ours. It really helped us out big time. Kiba asked. Where do I start? Those two are so stubborn and refusing to work as a team, we almost failed. I managed to get through to them in the end, but Naruto began as he told what happened during the bell test. Despite all that had happened, though, things were looking up. He was finally a ninja, even if on a sucky team. He was friends with Hinata, and it looked like he would soon be friends with her teammates as well, both people that didn't really do any wrong to him while in the academy. Hinata was no longer under the scrutiny of her father, and even if his own appointed sensei didn't teach him anything, he could always train under Kurenai-sensei. Naruto enjoyed spending the afternoon chatting it up with Hinata and her team, and soon found himself walking her home. Hey, Hinata-chan, Naruto asked her. Isn't there something in the village rules that says that any ninja has a right to a home? Or at least something like that. It was hard to read those law books when I tried, but I'll go give them another look next time I'm in the library. 'Cause if that's true, you should look into getting your own place. You could get away from your so-called family and just be you. It'd be great, Naruto said excitedly. That'd be nice, but I didn't know if my clan would allow it. I'd have to ask, Hinata said sadly. They both knew what her father would say if she did. Well, I'm going to look in the law books anyway. If you have a right to, you should take advantage of it. Naruto said, then frowned as they came up to the Hyuga compound. I hate having to leave you in this place. I don't really like it either, but what can I do? Hinata asked. Naruto smiled. We can prolong the inevitable if you want to go look up those laws right now. Your father doesn't care what you do, now that he's focused on your sister, right? So that should mean you have no curfew. What do you say? I'd like that, Hinata replied. Then let's go, Naruto said as he grabbed Hinata's hand and sped off towards the library, not failing to notice her deep blush when he glanced back at her once while running. I may have just been fooling myself before, or maybe I was afraid of what it would mean. But that vision in my dreams confirmed what I already knew. I like Hinata-chan, and there is no way I'm going to just stand by and watch her get hurt like I have in the past. Now I can do something for her. Now, I'm a ninja, Naruto thought with confidence and determination. If the law books didn't have an answer, he'd go to the Hokage and force him to do something about Hinata-chan's situation. He refused to let her stay in that compound any longer than she had to. Later that night, Naruto looked completely crestfallen as he walked Hinata home. Their trip to the library had been entirely unfruitful. Apparently, there was a subclause that overrided the ninja's right to home within the village proper if certain clan laws from specific clans were in effect. Unfortunately, that was exactly the case with Hinata. She was sad to learn of it, but at least things at home should be easier from now on. At the moment, she was more concerned with cheering up her blonde friend. Naruto-kun, it's okay. I'll be fine, Hinata said in a weak attempt to reassure him. I know, Hinata-chan, but I want you to be better than fine. I want you to finally be free of your family's clutches. I promised to talk to the Hokage first thing in the morning. I'm not going to rest till we have you out of that compound. Okay, Naruto said with conviction. All right, and thank you, Hinata replied. She really didn't want him to waste time on her, but she knew from that tone that nothing would stop him at this point. And she really wanted out of the compound herself. Looking up, Hinata saw her home coming into view. Okay, now's my chance. I'm a ninja now. That makes me more confident. I can do anything. Come on, Hinata. Tell him how you feel. Hinata inwardly ranted to herself in a petty attempt to raise her self-confidence enough to confess to the boy walking next to her. It hadn't taken long after she had started hanging out with Naruto to realize she liked him as something more than a friend. But it was all the time spent with him after that realization that liking him turned into loving him. She had tried again and again to tell him how she felt, to no avail, and had eventually settled on the promise to herself to do it once she became a real ninja. Now that she was, though, well, saying something and actually doing something are two completely different things. I'll try to make some time to hang out with you tomorrow, okay? Naruto said, still dejected. Hinata didn't realize they had made it nearly to the compound itself. Naruto always left just a bit before to avoid creating problems. Oh, Hinata replied weakly. Seeing the boy that she admired so much look so down and depressed broke her heart. Before she knew what she was doing, she reacted to the sight, and Naruto-kun? Yeah, he replied sadly. Hinata then darted in and kissed him on the cheek. Cheer up, okay? The dumbfounded look and growing blush on Naruto's face would have made her giggle if she wasn't busy trying to keep a blush of her own from getting out of control. SCU tomorrow. She managed out before running into her compound, head racing a mile a minute. Oh, Cammy, did I just kiss Naruto? What was I thinking? Where did that even come from? What if he didn't like it? Or what if that blush was really just him getting angry? I'll never be able to show my face to him again. Ugh. She continued to rant to herself as she continued through the compound, the whole time sporting a deep red blush of her own. She was stopped short, and her rantings immediately cut off by a cold, hard voice. Hinata-sama. The voice said with sarcasm and hate, your father and the council wish to speak with you. Now, they're displeased you decided to stay out so late. Her blood now running cold, Hinata turned to see that the one addressing her was none other than Niji Hyuga, her cousin and rising member of the branch family. Also, her father's second most favored, next to Hinabi. Trying to keep the fear out of her voice, Hinata responded, "Of course. I shall go to them immediately." Then turned to go before Niji replied, "I was given strict instructions to see you there myself as soon as you got in. Shall we, Hinata-sama?" Niji replied, nodding weakly. Hinata then followed her cousin through the compound. "What now? I thought he was done with me. For the love of Kami, what now?" Hinata thought as Niji lead her to one of the more secluded private meeting chambers, one of the few that could hold all that would be attending. Finally arriving, Hinata felt her heart sink. Her father and the entire Hyuga Council were all in attendance, and all had glares for the ex-heir as she entered the room with a bow and addressed her father. "Why you asked FF for me, father?" Hinata said as she took her spot at the end of the gathering, right where all could see her clearly. Hayashi glared at her as he replied, "You certainly took to your new liberties as a ninja quite quickly, daughter. Even though I need not say it, you kept us waiting for quite a while." At this, Hinata flinched. She knew that she'd be punished for staying out late. "But it is no longer my responsibility to see you punished for such an action. It is now Councilman Renga's duty," Hayashi continued, motioning to one of the older council members. One well known to be downright cruel to the branch house and any he saw as underneath him, which included most of the Hyuga clan itself. At Hayashi's revelation, Hinata looked in shock at Renga before looking back at her father. "What do you mean, father?" she asked in shock. "This meeting is to inform you as well as make final the decision of this good council." "Daughter," Hayashi spat the word out as if it carried a bad taste. "You have been a dishonor to the name Hyuga, a failure and a disgrace. Councilman Renga was chosen to see if there is any chance to make you respectable. He will oversee your training when you are not training with your team. You will answer to him and do everything that he says. Know this, daughter. If you continue to fail, continue to be weak, continue to be a disgrace to the main house and the name Hyuga, you will be disowned and sent to the branch house. Your shinobi career will end, and you will be given duties within the compound befitting one such as you. The next month will serve as the testing period. We shall see at the end of it if you are worthy to remain a main house member. That is all. Leave us. Now," Hayashi commanded. Feeling sick to her stomach, Hinata numbly stood, bowed, and left on shaky feet. As she exited the room and closed the door behind her, she saw Niji waiting just outside, smiling in a very evil way at her. "It's only a matter of time now, failure," was all he said before leaving. That did it for the poor girl. She ran to her room with tears in her eyes. Once there, she cried herself to sleep, hoping that when she awoke, all of this would be but a bad dream. Of course, she knew deep down that this wasn't a dream. This was reality, and she was about to lose her one chance at freedom. Naruto was the last anguished thought of the ex-heiress before she finally succumbed to the knight's embrace. 3 weeks later, it's funny how fast things can go downhill. One minute you're at the top of the world, with all of life's best to offer in front of you, and nothing can go wrong. Then you have your hands tied behind your back and your feet bound together, and you're forced to watch your best friend be beaten for 3 weeks on a nearly daily basis. Sure, the beatings weren't as bad as they had been under her bastard of father's care. Mostly just very rough spars. But the sheer number of times it happened in the name of training and the amount of verbal abuse was too much. Naruto was at his limit. He had tried going to the Hokage to no avail. Even Kurenai had made her case. Hinata was in her team after all. But Renga was as slimy a politician as they came and managed to get on the in with the civilian council when Kurenai took up her case in the shinobi courts. The end result was there was nothing she nor the Hokage could do. The best Kurenai could come up with was training Hinata as much as she could herself to make sure she passed her examination at the end of the month. Kiba and Shino hadn't complained and had even been on board for it once the situation was explained to them. But being constantly put down, degraded, and beaten at home didn't help her resolve. Even Naruto's presence didn't do much for the poor girl anymore. Naruto knew Hinata's team put on a brave face for her and did all that they could, but it wasn't enough. The Hyuga Council would put her in a match against her sister or even Niji, and she would take a verbal beating and then lose. With that, she would be branded and stripped from the shinobi ranks. Naruto couldn't let that happen. He had put his brain into overdrive to find a solution since the news 3 weeks ago, but still could find nothing realistic. It pissed him off. RRRHH. You're going down, you damn cat. Water style. Wild water, wave, jutsu. Naruto yelled in anger before raising his hand to his mouth to funnel the stream of water emerging at high velocity, cutting down several trees. In the interest of making Hinata stronger, Kurenai had checked to see what her nature affinity was, along with the rest of her team and Naruto, and was pleasantly surprised to find that the girl's main affinity was wind. This allowed Kurenai to get her good friend Asuma in on the training. And while actual wind elemental training took years to master, Asuma had managed to teach Hinata wind style, air bullets, giving the girl a ranged attack. Kurenai hoped it would give Hinata an edge, but Naruto was doubtful. While Hinata had been a wind user, it turned out Naruto had been a water type. When he had found out, it had only added to his already growing frustration. Of all 5 of the elements he could have gotten, he got the one he wanted the least. Sure, water was one of the most versatile of the 5 basic chakra natures, if not the most versatile. But why couldn't it have been earth? Or fire? Hell, even wind like Hinata would have been awesome. But no, he got stuck with freaking lame-ass water. At least he had managed to get Kakashi to teach him water style, wild water wave, and from that, and some dream knowledge, he had managed to figure out water style, liquid bullet as well. The falling trees ended up creating a cage around Tora, who had been evading the blonde and his team for a good part of 30 minutes. After the trees fell, a Naruto clone used another wild water wave, weaker this time, to pin the cat in place while several other Narutos jumped in and tied the cat up. Naruto, what are you doing? Trying to kill that poor cat? Sakura said while pointing to Tora, which now was nothing more than a head and tail sticking out of a ball of rope shivering constantly. That hellspawn deserves to be offed. The only reason I don't do the world a favor and end its horrible existence now is because I won't get paid if I do. Naruto yelled back. His control on his temper had been slipping the closer Hinata's exam got. Now it was pretty much gone. They hadn't done this mission before, but one of the few constants in all his dreams was that Tora was evil and merciless. And he needed something to vent his anger on. What are you talking about? Did you get hit in the head or something? You're saying crazier stuff than usual. Sakura said, still upset at the blonde. Sasuke just glared at him. Ever since the bell test, the Uchiha had been trying to upstage Naruto at every turn, only for the Uzumaki to shrug off his attempts or upstage him in turn. Now that Naruto was a water user, the Uchiha hated him even more. Okay, that was one good thing about using the stupid element. At least he could take out any of Sasuke's fire jutsu easily now. Good job, Naruto. Once again, you've shown an insight into the true situation and reacted accordingly. Kakashi said as he appeared next to the group. What? You can't be serious, Kakashi-sensei. It's just a cat, Sakura reasoned. It is a menace to society, Sakura, Kakashi said simply. Now let's go report into the mission office and call it a day. Making it to the mission office with only minor grumbling and arguments, Team 7 made their way out of the Hokage's tower and into the street proper. Okay, team, the rest of the day is a self-trained day. I have important things to take care of, Kakashi said, then pulled out his Aika book and walked away, giggling perversely as he did. This suited Naruto just fine. Today wasn't a regular training day for Hinata's team, so she was stuck in the hell hole of a compound. Her being stuck there and him not being able to not do a thing about it put Naruto very close to the edge. The other side of said edge involving a lot of paper bombs and the Hyuga compound, after rescuing Hinata, of course. He had almost done so already on numerous occasions. Consequences be damned. But every time had either managed to stop himself or be stopped by a friend nearby. Turning to jump away and head to the most remote training ground he could find, Naruto was stopped by Sasuke. "Hey, dope." Turning, Naruto asked through grit teeth. "What?" "Today is a free train day. Let's spar. It's time I put a loser like you in your place," Sasuke said. On one hand, having the Uchiha as a punching bag would do wonders for Naruto's stress. On the other, he wasn't sure if he had enough self-control to not kill the Uchiha in the process. So he opted for the smarter choice, even if his rage and the QB screamed at him to do otherwise. "Not today, Sasuke. I have neither the time nor the patience to deal with your arrogant ass today." "Naruto, what have I told you about calling Sasuke bad names?" Sakura exploded. This only caused Naruto to turn on her and yell with rage, "Shut up. I have even less time to hear shit about your precious Kami damned Sasuke." He yelled at her with such rage that he made the girl jump back in shock. He also caused the street to go silent and have everyone in it look at him. "Oh, for the love of..." Naruto mentally facepalmed before shining away in anger, much to the displeasure of Sasuke and Sakura. Making his way to a far out-of-the-way training ground, Naruto made 1,000 clones. 100 to stupid control, 100 to retardedly hard Jinjutsu, 100 to lame water elemental training. The rest, today we finally master the bloody Rasengan. "Sound good?" Naruto barked out in anger. Getting several angry replies of affirmation in return, Naruto then began running at top speed around the grounds. After his second lap, however, he stopped with the thought, "I should have enough for some more." Making 50 more clones, Naruto gave them the instructions to set up ambushes for him all throughout the route around the grounds. "Maybe beating myself senseless will help take my mind off things. Nothing else does. You could always come in here. I guarantee I can help take your mind off things." The QB suddenly spoke up. She had been happier and happier as the situation with Hinata had progressed. But she knew that without her adding the flair of constant horrible visions and nightmares, Naruto wouldn't break and give in to his anger. Sure, he was angry, but all his training let him keep it in check, even under these conditions. "No." Naruto instantly shot back as he stood waiting, giving his clones time to set up. "Oh, not even curious as to why I offered to help?" the fox asked. "When I said no, it wasn't an answer to your question. It was a no. I'm not dealing with your crap today, so shut up and leave me alone so I can stew in my own juices." "No." "Got it," Naruto angrily replied. "So touchy. What's the matter, little Naruto-chan? You know, there's a way to make sure your precious little Hyuga has the confidence to win regardless who she fights." The QB baited. This made Naruto pause. He knew it was just another trick from the fox, but he was at his wit's end and was getting desperate. "What is it?" "Simple, really. You like her. And even if you're too dense to realize it, she likes you," the QB said before she was interrupted by Naruto. "You have no proof of that," he said in denial. "Uh-huh. As if her making the first move by kissing you on the cheek really wasn't a dead giveaway. Even if she hadn't done that, it was painfully obvious she had tried several times to confess to you before. You're just too wrapped up in denial because the idea of anyone liking you in that way is just too much to take in after all you've been through." The QB reasoned mercilessly. "Even if you're right, you still haven't told me this big plan of yours. It's simple, really. Confess to her, then bang her like a rabbit. That'd boost her confidence so much she would smile as they beat her and laugh when they try to bring her down with silly name calling and verbal degrading," the QB said perversely and without a bit of shame. "Awa, that you just know. I could never do that." Naruto mentally sputtered as he was caught off guard. "Well, yeah, of course you couldn't, as a virgin. But you are in luck, for I am in a very generous mood and would gladly help you fix that little problem." Much to Naruto's shame, he actually stopped to consider what the QB was suggesting. He did like Hinata, and if confessing would bring her the confidence she needed, he'd gladly do it. But would confessing alone really be enough? Would he have to go that extra step, as the QB suggested? Of course, he wouldn't take the QB up on her de-virginization offer. But with Hinata, she was so cute and beautiful and shy. Naruto then punched himself as hard as he could in the forehead, instantly clearing his head. Wow, I must really be getting desperate if I'm considering something like that. Ah, is that a no? Come on, Naruto-kun. I love you and want you to do me like a jackhammer, the QB said in a perfect imitation of Hinata's voice, causing Naruto to start a nosebleed. He instantly zoned the QB out and began running. What she had suggested was tempting, but was not the way to go about this. Naruto knew he could figure out a solution. He just had to keep a level head. He'd really have to thank the QB later, though. She really helped him forget about all his anger, even if she wasn't trying to. 3.5 hours later, Naruto stood in the middle of the training grounds, now covered in various size craters, and stared at the spiraling ball of chakra in his hand. It had only taken roughly 3 months of clone training time for him to get the damned move down completely. But he had. Sure, he would need to train with the move more so that he could do it reliably with either hand at a reasonable speed, but at least now he could perform the frustratingly hard jutsu. Naruto popped the first clone that had gotten it down completely, and then gathered all his remaining clones, including the ones doing other things, and had set up a mad free-for-all. The only rules. Only taijutsu and the Rasengan were allowed. The result was a nasty explosion-filled battle of a lot of angry Narutos as the real one took all the information in. It had been very educational. He now had a decent idea how to use it in combat, its range, and how it would react when it hit itself. But that didn't give him the answer to the question that had made its way into his head soon after the battle had been completed. How was he going to turn this into something stronger with water? He had seen in his dreams several different versions of the completed Rasengan. The most common was a wind version, which also seemed to be the most powerful out of any of them he had seen. He had also seen several lightning and fire versions as well, both very powerful and useful, even the occasional earth. He had even seen some rare ones, ice, wood, and lava versions. But he had never seen a water variant. He just had to be stuck with the weak element on the wheel. At least he would have had a decent idea where to begin if he was any of the other elements, but not water. Getting frustrated with another situation where he had no idea what to do brought back all his previous anger and frustration about Hinata's situation. With a sudden influx of emotion, Naruto charged and slammed the Rasengan into the nearest tree, blowing apart the majority of its trunk and felling it easily. Frowning, Naruto began walking back to the village. Even after 3 hours of picking apart the situation with a clear head, he couldn't come up with a way out. There was still plenty of time left to train. The sun was giving off its last rays, but Naruto didn't care. He wasn't in the mood to train. Heading back into the village, Naruto slowly made his way back to his apartment, not even caring when his stomach growled. He had planned on eating at Ichirako's, hoping seeing Tucci and Ayam would lift his spirits. But now he wasn't hungry, not even for ramen from their stand, nor was he in the mood to even see them. All Naruto wanted right now was a moment to himself where he wasn't worrying about anything. Simple peace. Not what he was feeling right now. Anger that was so strong he had to fight every second to control, shame that he couldn't do anything to help his friend, and weariness. A weariness that comes from always being on the short side of the stick, always getting kicked when you're down, always being spit on and ridiculed. Naruto had a lifetime of these experiences weighing on him. And with Hinata's problems piling on top, he didn't know how much more he could take. The sun had long since set by the time Naruto made it back to his apartment. He had walked all the way back, taking as long as he could. While he wanted to have his moment of peace by himself, his feelings conflicted because he also didn't want to be alone. Plodding up the steps to the second floor, Naruto was so out of it that he didn't notice the noise he had ignored to be sobbing. That noise became painfully obvious, however, when Naruto saw who was making it. A sobbing Hinata huddled against the door to Naruto's apartment. Naruto froze at the sight of his friend, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Hinata was battered and bruised. The loose white sparing outfit she was in was torn and dirty. The thing that made Naruto freeze, though, he had unfortunately seen Hinata pretty banged up before, was the very noticeable red stain stemming from the crotch of her pants. No, not her. Please, Cammy, not her. Naruto thought before a single word quietly escaped his lips. Hinata-chan. At the sound of her name being called, Hinata's head shot up. The look on her face almost made Naruto break down right there. Her left eye was bruised shut. Her lower lip split and badly swollen as though it had been struck several times hard. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst part was her expression. Pain was painted all over her face, as if a master of the craft had taken his brush and created his most sorrowful piece. Shame was there as well, a deep, unrelinquishing shame, like a torrential downpour of the strongest rainstorm. What cut into Naruto the most was the amount of fear on her face. Not just fear of whoever had done the unspeakable act to her, but the fear of rejection. As soon as Hinata saw Naruto, she became afraid. Afraid he wouldn't be able to accept her after what had happened to her. Afraid no one would. It was that fear on her face coupled with the loss of the innocent spark in her eyes that hit Naruto like a wave of the coldest ice water. The only thing that allowed him to move and grab her shoulder was that as soon as she saw Naruto and looked at him in fear, she immediately gathered herself to run. Naruto was not about to let her go. Not now. As soon as he grabbed her shoulder, Hinata flinched, froze up, and looked at Naruto with fear. "Hinata-chan, it's okay. I'm here," Naruto said, as comforting as he could manage, as he enveloped her in a hug. He knew the last thing she would want right now is male contact, but he also knew she needed a shoulder to cry on more. Hinata shuddered and whimpered a little as his hug included bruised and sore spots, but she quickly sagged against the blonde, crying. As Naruto held the weeping girl, he silently made a shadow clone, which opened the door to his apartment and helped Naruto maneuver the two of them inside. Naruto looked at the clone, who nodded in return. He knew what Hinata would need right now. A good cry, someone to talk to, and a shower and fresh change of clothes. Naruto managed to get Hinata over to his one small couch before she lost control of her legs due to her crying. "I'm here, Hinata-chan. I'm here. It's okay. I'm not going to leave or think less of you. This wasn't your fault," Naruto said as soothing as he could. Once Naruto implied he knew what happened, Hinata looked up. "And in Naruto Keikun, why you mean why you?" "Yes, I know what happened. I know because the same thing has happened to me before," Naruto said quietly. Hinata's one good eye widened at this revelation, though her tears didn't stop. Naruto then pulled her back to her shoulder slowly. "Shh. It's okay. I've got you," Naruto said as Hinata's leaking dam holding back the bulk of her emotions broke. As she wailed at the top of her lungs due to what had been done to her, Naruto began to cry as well, only silently. His best friend, the girl he loved, raped. Raped at the hands of her so-called family. Raped while he sat around with his thumbs up his ass and did nothing. These thoughts grew in Naruto's head as he held the crying Hyuga. With them grew his rage and shame. He should have been there. Should have stopped it. Should have done something. Anything. Should have made Kurenai know the Hokage do something. If only he was Hokage, then he could have stopped this. Could have made the Kami accursed Hyuga do as he said, and killed anyone that said otherwise. With the mention of the word Hokage, Naruto's thoughts took a turn. So this is it? This is what I get to look forward to as Hokage. Having no power over the individual clans that make up this village, or over a fucking civilian council in a shinobi village. Being forced to sit and watch as children are beaten and raped. What good is being Hokage if you can't even stop one tragedy like this? With the way the shit laws are in the village, the ones responsible in the clan will probably get away with this too. As Naruto ranted in his head, with each line his rage grew. Rage that he had been holding in and building all this time bubbled to the surface once more. The QB was silent as she felt the sheer force of her container's rage grew to a point that made even her uneasy, the memory of their shared dream fresh in her mind. She merely gathered herself, waited, and watched. With his rage overflowing and a pain in his heart so sharp it made Naruto cry even more, the blonde ninja took a deep breath in. A breath one takes before plunging in a battle you can't win, before screaming one's lungs out to the point where you pass out, before killing something you love. Naruto held this breath as his rage consumed him. Then, in an instant, something broke inside the blonde. Something he didn't know was there. His dream, something that meant more to him than he realized, shattered. A little of Naruto Uzumaki died that night while holding his one true friend. Then from the gaping, bleeding hole, something new emerged. And with it, so did an aim. If being Hokage means you can't save one innocent little girl from an evil bastard, then I don't want to be Hokage, ever. That one simple thought, that one uncomplicated, painful, liberating, and enslaving thought changed Naruto. He now knew what he had to do. It was time to leave Konoha.